Okay. We'll call the meeting to order for the City of Saratoga Springs, Tuesday, December 1st, 2020 at 6 p.m. Pursuant to the COVID-19 guidelines, this meeting will be conducted electronically. I, Jim Miller, the mayor of the City of Saratoga Springs, hereby determines that conducting the city council meeting at an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. The World Health Organization, the President of the United States, the Governor of Utah, and the County Health Department have all recognized a global pandemic exists to the new strain of the coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, COVID-19. Due to the state of emergency caused by the global pandemic, I find that conducting a meeting at an anchor location under the current state of public health emergency constitutes a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the location. This written declaration expires 30 days from the date signed. So with that read, so we're legal, we'll move on to the work session, the mixed use zone.
All right, Mayor and Council, you recall at the last meeting, we brought some items back to you as far as the work session. Two of the council members were not present at that time, so we.
Oh, you hit mute, Stroud.
All right, the whole spiel all over again. Yeah, so we're bringing back the mixed use and the artificial turf to you. We brought that back to you at the last city council meeting. We had a couple of council members who were not present. And so we're back here tonight to go over that. The first being the mixed use zone. If you recall, we had the development coming in on Redwood Road here across from Costco that had the commercial portion out along Redwood Road, but then had the residential portion separated from the commercial by Riverside. And as the way the code is set up, that's okay. And I think we all see the error in that. In fact, somebody did make the comment at the meeting or two back that the mixed use zone was their least favorite zone. And so they decided to bring this back to you to get your thoughts on the mixed use. I did pose a question out to the Utah APA listserv about what other cities have done. One of the good ideas that did come back was city, I don't recall the city, but what was important is that they said, we do have a mixed use zone, but we require that the residential and commercial portions not be separated by public roads. You have to access, go back and forth between commercial and residential via private roads or whatnot. Just cannot be separated by a public street, which is what we have in that development. And so just to bring it back to the mayor and the council of what your thoughts are on the mixed use zone, if you want to give us any direction on where to take this in the future.
Any comments?
I guess I'll comment. I'm the one that made the comment before that's my least favorite zone, because what happens is we have a whole bunch of typically higher density product in one area and a bunch of commercial in another. I like this. I think there is a place for the zone. I just don't think it's ever functioned the way that we intended, or the way that the council who originally crafted it ever intended. So I like your suggestion of limiting public roads and having it intermixed a little bit. Because otherwise we just have a higher density zone and a limited, very small commercial zone.
Yeah, I think if you were to ask any city planner what transpired in that development is nowhere near a mixed use definition.
Yeah,
I mean, we see it throughout the city.
What I would suggest is maybe looking at what the other cities do and having some of their, and again, I'm only one of 4 that are on, 5 with the mayor. Taking a look at what the other cities have done where it's effective and doesn't look like what we have, and trying to incorporate that as some draft verbiage. Excuse me, sorry.
I guess my question, to the rest of the council is what exactly, because I mean, I tend to agree with Councilman Wilden, but if we're I think staff probably wants to know what we're trying. Like, are we looking for Wolverine Crossing? Are we looking for kind of like what we have in North Shore, where it's, you know, the townhomes with commercial underneath? Are we looking for, you know, commercial buildings next to residential buildings, not separated by a road? You know, I like the look or I like the idea of the.
He was just saying he agrees with everything I ever say.
We lost him there.
Well, it's a long pause. I think we lost him.
Perfect. Looks like Councilman, oh, there's Councilman Carn back. Okay. Other comments while we wait for Councilman Porter?
I mean, I can address what he was suggesting is what do we expect to see? I don't think that I really have a good answer to that. I'm not super familiar, but I think the intent was to really have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, I mean, you've been doing it for 4 years longer than I have. I think the intent was to create a walkable community. I don't know if that's daybreak, that's kind of a bad word, but I think that was the original intent.
I think that was the original intent, was to create a walkable community with a lot of amenities. I just haven't ever seen it happen.
Yeah, I think if the development that came in, I think if you just saw those residential on the west side of Riverside Crossing tied into the commercial, I think you'd get that intent of a more walkable community, where now it's just they're totally independent and isolated because of Riverside.
So everybody's staring at the screen. So how much of that did you hear?
You went out about 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, what, I don't know. Basically, I don't know what, I'm guessing we're just going to repeat myself. You know, I like what Councilman Wilden said about, you know, leaning towards the what was presented by David, as far as having the buildings, you know, have to share private roads and not being separated by public roads. I like that concept. I'm just curious from council, the rest of the council, what type of use they're looking to see. I mean, whether it's the stacked uses like Wolverine Crossing, or whether we're not, you know, probably not that dense, but I mean, I think we keep saying we don't like how it's working, but we have yet to give, you know, staff. I don't think we've ever told staff, this is a development that I would like to see in our city. Go find out what code they used for that. So I guess my question is for the rest of council, or that I'm curious about from hearing from council, is what, you know, when you hear mixed use, what are you hoping to see?
I think what you missed, when you were gone, I asked the mayor. I mean, I think the original intent was some type of walkable community.
Right.
And something that achieves that and it mixes it in a little bit.
Okay.
I don't have a good example though.
I mean, it was before my time. But if I remember right, the DAP was supposed to do that for us at some point. The mixed use at North Shore was supposed to do that for us at some point. I don't know if we'll ever see it on either one of those. So I kind of agree with Councilman Wilden on how do we encourage that mixed use. And at this point, do we want to entertain another community that would come in and try and do that? And frankly, have somebody figure out a way to get around that code and not do it. Or do we want to just take it out?
I think what you have going for you right now is I'd have to look at the zoning of it. Any property that's currently zoned mixed use that's not developed, it doesn't stick out in my mind. And so you do have at least the control of if somebody does come in for a rezone to mixed use, you certainly have that that option to tie them to, obviously they have a concept plan with it. But you'd also be looking at a development agreement to say, no, this is what we want you to do. Of course, with a rezone request, you don't have to grant that request. And so you can, enforce that by saying, come back with something else and we'll consider that rezone until we get something in place, or you just do it that way as well. That could be another option.
Yeah, I think North Shore is the only mixed use community there, and that was granted in their annexation agreement. One thing we might want to look at, without throwing too big of a wrench into it, is that was a little bit of the intent with mixed waterfront, I thought, as well, to have some of
Right.
that.
Yeah.
So we might want to look at that zone too, to make sure we're going to achieve kind of the long-term goal with that.
Yeah, mixed use and mixed waterfront really kind of act similar. And as far as North Shore goes, that's mixed residential. It's not a commercial and a residential development like a mixed use would normally be. But yeah, going back, mixed waterfront and mixed use, for the most part, are very similar, other than perhaps maybe some setbacks or what types of uses you can put in those zones.
David, Mayor, if it's okay, if I can add to what Dave Stroud is saying as well. I mean, there's definitely benefits to the mixed use and mixed waterfront zone, and I agree with Councilmember Carn to address both of those because they do act the same. Several of the developers that I've been talking to in the last 6 months, and I've talked more consistently in the last 6 months. Over the last 3 years, I've talked to a lot of developers over the mixed waterfront, but in the last 6 months, I've talked to several different ones that are heavily interested in mixed waterfront. And what I'm getting at is there is a lot of value in this type of zone. I think the problem, as all of you have pointed out, is that it doesn't give them enough guidance on how to develop within the zone. So, I'm speaking very generically, but I would just suggest creating criteria. And what I'm getting at is not to get rid of the zones because they do have value for economic development. But I think having criteria of what you want it to look like, as you've been saying. So forgive me for interjecting, but that's one item I wanted to add.
Yeah, looking at the zoning map here, there really isn't much left that's currently zoned mixed use, which would come in today. So going back to my comment, and perhaps we could build on that comment, if somebody does come in for a mixed use zone, you have every right to thumbs up or thumbs down their concept plan, and then tie that concept plan to a development agreement that will run with the land.
Right, but I mean, we have that same right with the Osmond property, and we didn't do it.
Right. I don't think it ever really came as a discussion.
I'd rather, to David's point, I'd rather give people criteria that says this is what we're after. We don't bring us an Osmond type property where you have, or the Riverbend, where you have commercial and residential split. They need to be intermingled in some manner. I don't know whether the rest of the council's comfortable with stacked mixed use, or whether if we're trying to avoid that, Wolverine Crossing look where you have, one floor of or 2 floors of commercial and then floors 3+ are residential. If we're trying to avoid that, then I think we need to go the direction that David Stroud mentioned with at least requiring them to use private roads to communicate with each other and not being split by public roads.
To your point there, Councilman Porter, the regional commercial zone right now does allow residential above commercial. So if we have RC zone right now, we're actually working on a development as we speak with that concept. Nothing has ever been built in the city with that yet. That option is available in the RC zone. And I believe it's also in the mixed waterfront as well.
Really quick, David Johnson. Michael's trying to get in. He's been trying to text you or his link's not working because he's on his mobile.
He's in the attendees. You just need to promote
There we
him.
go. He's now a panelist. So,
Perfect.
I was just gonna add that, to what Dave Stroud was saying, the only caution I would give about the RC zone, it does allow for residential up top, but, the RC zone allows for lube shops and a lot of the other types of things that you might not see in some areas. So a mixed waterfront zone would probably have similar things of, residential up top or however you want the criteria to be, but you could also more decide the types of uses allowed in that zone, because you may not want certain types of uses by the lakefront that you would necessarily, in an RC zone by where Costco's at.
Well,
Just-
and if that more intense use is allowed in the RC zone, then I don't necessarily have a problem with excluding it from the mixed use zone and going more, residential buildings and commercial buildings, just a better mix.
I personally think there's a place for it, and if people come in and ask for the zone and it's the right thing, I think for what we see at the time, I think it's a nice thing to have in the tool belt. The tool belt. I just feel like we're trying to come up with theoretically what we'd like to see right now. I mean, it would be helpful for me if planning came back with some suggestions and pictures of different developments that are out there, and having us go through it and identify kind of what we like, and then creating code around that would encourage such a thing in case someone came in and asked for that type of zone and had a development like that. I feel like I'm being asked to tell you exactly what I'd like to see, and you got to show me what some options are out there.
I'd agree with that. I'd like to see kind of what developments we're trying to aim for instead of kind of discussing hypothetically what they should be. So yeah, I think I do like having it available for those to come and ask for it. And like you said, Stroud, we can work in the development agreement better than it sounds like in the past that's been done. Like, I guess, I'm not familiar with the Osmond one. I don't remember that one, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Osmond one's the one that's being built off of Redwood Road. That it hasn't been built yet. We just approved the commercial, but not the residential. I would agree that if we could get I always tell my wife, I can't, when we're designing stuff around the house, I can't pick colors without, I'm like, you pick the colors and I'll tell you whether I like it, but I'm not going to be able to look at the 40,000 colors at Lowe's and pick out the one I like. So I would agree. I would like to see some options maybe that have been done along the Wasatch Front. And I'll be able to say I like that or I don't like that, but I'm probably not going to be able to create that whole cloth.
Mayor, if I could, what we can do as staff to kind of help facilitate this, I think we're kind of getting a gist of some of the things. We can pull together some various pictures and examples and things of that nature, and send some survey stuff out to the council to see what you guys like particularly. And then we can certainly kind of craft the code based on some of the examples that we'll pull together of both good, bad, and ugly of these various types of use that you can then, tell us how you would like us to try and apply the code, if that works.
That works for me.
Great. Thank
Hi
you.
guys, I'm here. Michael's here. Sorry, it's been a challenge getting on. I have been listening. I just couldn't talk before. So I love the direction that we're going, and even getting a potential developer who has been successful building waterfront to give maybe some ideas on good code could be beneficial as well.
That's actually, Michael, thank you for mentioning. That's one thing I was going to suggest. There's a couple, like I mentioned, there's a few developers that I'm talking to. I can get some feedback from them on uses and those sorts of things.
Good.
Okay, should we move on to the next one?
Next one.
Okay, next item was the artificial turf. Now, if you recall, this was discussed, I'm going to look at my notes here, October of 2018. So a little over 2 years ago, we did bring it back to you. did not receive the direction to go forward with anything. It was expressed to bring this back to you. In the memo there in your packet, it does show the ordinance that we did present to you 2 years ago. And so this would allow, we did have an individual in the city that again asked for artificial turf in his front yard. We of course told him no, by the code doesn't allow that. And then he went, he may have talked to one of the council members, I don't recall, but I think that was the impetus for this coming back to the city council to discuss and see if there's anything that's changed or any additional feedback you'd like to present to us.
I'm looking for that. Okay, I'll just say I was the one 2 years ago that kind of asked to look at this, and I remember that I had concerns with the specific text that was brought back last time, but like I definitely still feel like it should be an option for residents. You know, I'm fully supportive of if an HOA wants to ban it, that's the HOA's decision and people are subject to those covenants, but I don't necessarily feel that the city should be in the position where we're telling people who chose not to live in an HOA so that they would have some ability to do things that may not comport with an HOA's guidelines, that they would have that ability to do it. I think it can be done. I know there's fear around certain specific examples in the city. I think some of that is addressed in the code, but mainly I think we need to find a way where we can allow people to do the stuff that looks good, like what we use at Patriot Park, and avoid, the cheap porch lining stuff that has been used in the past in the city, which everybody holds up as the example of what we don't want.
I think I would agree with that as well. And I know, and I don't know if we can do this, but if we move forward, and that's a general consensus, having another requirement in there around maintenance. If, it becomes, and I know Kevin will correct me because this is kind of arbitrary language, so you need to think about it. But if it becomes significantly faded, worn out, or whatever, similar to weeds, it need to be replaced. And just thinking about it as we're looking at like impact fees and secondary water impact fees are going way up, and it's going to become more expensive. I think having this as a limited option with some restrictions around it would help avoid creating massive heat islands that everyone gets concerned about when you have the permeability requirements in there, minimum heights, and some type of ongoing maintenance. And I don't think if you have these, I don't think you're going to have a widespread application of this across the city, because this type of thing is cheaper than the putting greens that we've seen. Or not cheaper, more expensive. So
it's actually quite a bit more expensive than putting in a lawn. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's the long-term maintenance is where the savings is.
So really, one of my things, I'm fine with it if we want to have good restrictions. I really appreciate Steven's comment around the maintenance. Again, it's the enforcement. When the wind or something major happens, or there's a mudslide or something that water damage the neighbors, then takes out your lawn, to replace it is very expensive, and then it makes bad neighbors and it makes for ugly look. Because if you have a dead spot on your grass, it's $30 to go buy two sod pieces at Home Depot, and you can 4 pieces and you can replace it. This would be a couple $1,000s, and then even finding anyone to be able to match it. So grass will naturally match each other. You try and patch artificial turf with the fading, then you look like a checkerboard. So it's a high risk. I've seen this in Arizona, Vegas, when I've gone visiting family and friends, and they have a lot of it down there. And they have very, very strict rules. So if we do it, it wouldn't hurt to probably call some of your counterparts, maybe Mark, that you know in Vegas or Nevada, Arizona, to find out what kind of code they have to make sure that it's consistent. It's all sort of one look. It doesn't look like a checkerboard. And I'm not as worried about the heat islands. Stephen, I agree. I think that this will be very limitedly used. I just worry about causing bad neighbor look to bringing a community down. So.
Oh, those are great comments. Thanks.
And
I
I
can check
and I
and see
agree
what's
with
going on.
Michael with everything he just echoed. So I'm all for HOAs regulating this and letting people who've chosen not to live in HOAs have a little bit more freedom here.
Well, I have just I guess a different viewpoint on this in the standpoint of I don't like creating code that's not enforceable. So as I'm looking through this, Stroud, maybe you can help on this a little bit more. But for item I, how do we enforce that it's a minimum 8-year no fade warranty?
We'd have to obviously have some kind of record of when it was put in. Does that require a building permit? No, I don't think, unless we require some sort of permit. Kevin may have to jump in if that can be a permit item. But if we can have a permit, we can at least track it. And that would give us all the details. It could give us the product, all the specs of the product, and we can keep that on record here. That would then give us, that 8-year or whatever the manufacturer's warranty comes with it. We'd have some sort of record.
So residents to have turf put in their yard, they'd have to go through a permit process.
Then again, that'd be if Kevin, if that's something we could require a permit for. I don't know why not, but at least that gets us the record. And of course, like anything, you could get people that do things without a permit. We'd have to go through the process. We do have it as a permit. Go through the process to then get them on board to get all the records and whatnot. So we have those.
Because that's the only way I see it happening. Go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
So just from a legal perspective, yeah, those are all things that we're going to look at. We haven't done a legal review of this yet. So we'll work with planning on making sure it's enforceable and finding a good way of verifying compliance and so forth. So we'll take note of your concern and address that.
Yeah, because it's like the first two items, verifying that it's 8-year warranty, also verifying if it's professionally installed. And so our staff is going to have to go through and verify the installers that they're professionals on this product and that it's installed according to manufacturer instructions. So those two items just bring red flags to me as far as enforceability. And then also the minimum pile height, I guess that would be part of the permit process. But for our code enforcement, are they going to be now an HOA inspector in the standpoint of going through and measuring when they see sod artificial turf that's been put in? Same thing with maintaining 3-foot diameter around the trees. So is this kind of reintroducing a DRC, but at a city level that just has concerns that we're creating an HOA for areas that don't have HOAs? Because
we essentially already do, though, that we tell them they can't, we tell them what they can't do with their property. So, I mean, I see what you're saying. I just feel that, I guess I'm looking at it the other way of saying, at least this way they have more options. If, we already don't let them grow their grass more than 6 inches tall. So
and they have to have so much turf in the front yard and
right,
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. So, I mean, we already have requirements that we enforce.
Well, we require that they have their weeds under 2 feet, and we have a lot of things. I do think, though, that a permit similar to like solar panels makes sense, because if we're having all this professional installation, just like we make solar panels professionally installed, it makes sense to me, and we can maybe follow the same model.
Yeah, because I mean, it does say that not to cover more than 25%. So they're gonna have to come with a landscape design plan of their front yard for staff to be able to approve that it's not more than 25%. They have 3-foot tree wells. They're not using inorganic fill in those areas. I mean, it's to me, it's an HOA. But I understand that the intent is to create more freedom. But what's hard is like when you're creating this more freedom, you're creating a huge handbook of rules to go with that. That is now nickel and diming kind of the way that they do use that. And so to me, this application works really well in a commercial setting because they already do have crews that maintain it. It's more of a setting that doesn't matter if it passes from tenant to tenant, it maintains that. So, and that's kind of the problem, that one of the issues I see here is that you have a homeowner that is really detailed and does a good job in installing it. But then how is that guaranteed to be carried on by the new homeowner after they sell it? That comes in there is like, great, you know, I get to save money on this, but they have no idea how to take care of it or what to do with it. And so in 2 to 3 years, is it then in disarray? You know, Councilman Wilden brought up, you know, secondary water is going up. And so more and more people will be reverting to that, which is great, but that's what kind of xeriscaping is for. I know in my last neighborhood, you know, we had everything that we could grass, yet our water bills were lower than everybody else. And they asked, how is that possible? And we got a drought tolerant grass. And so we never went over our allotment any of our months. And so there's ways to achieve the conservation aspect of it. And I don't have as much of an issue having artificial turf in residential areas. It's just the maintenance of it. And that burden now of, I know within our HOA, when we had our inspectors just maintain the common areas, there's a lot less fighting in the neighborhood. But as soon as they went to inspecting all the residential lots, that's when all the fighting happened. Because it's like, oh, they're looking at this corner and it's rolled up and they're finding me because I didn't fix it. I don't want us to get into those kind of more and more of those areas. That's just my thought on that.
I still am in favor of moving forward under the parameters we spoke to. And just to address that, I don't think it's fair to use the argument that we're turning into an HOA when we have very, very similar requirements on homes already with turf and limits and everything like that. So I just wanted on record that I'm not supporting us turning into an HOA, but at least being consistent of what we require on live vegetation.
Okay. Stroud, do you feel you've got direction?
Yeah, I think we do. Mark, you gonna jump in here?
Nope, I was just going to say, I think we've got what we need, Mayor and Council. Thank you very much. We'll bring something back, and obviously you can continue to tweak that and provide us direction as we do that. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's the conclusion of our work session. We'll start our policy meeting. Present tonight, we have Councilman Podeska, Councilman Carn, Councilman Wilden, Councilman Porter, and Councilman McComber. So we do have a quorum. I've asked, I believe it was Councilman Podeska to lead us in invocation, and Assistant City Administrator Owen Jackson to lead us in our pledge.
Heavenly Father, we thank thee for this opportunity to meet together as a city and discuss the needs of our residents as well as developers and those that help build our communities. We ask for thy guidance and wisdom and the decisions that we make, that we may do so for the good as a whole of our residents and and that we also may be able to hear out those that are here before us with on the agenda. Again, we thank these for these opportunities and pray that we'll be able to return to normal meetings soon. And we say these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Will you please repeat the pledge with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. We have public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments for subject matter not listed on this agenda. If you're here for the public hearing of the drinking water, please hold your comments to the public hearing. Please be respectful in your comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. David, was there any public comments sent in?
I have a couple here. I'm just trying to see. Looks like these are both from developers in relation to, I think, impact fees. So I don't think anything outside of that I haven't received.
Okay. Seeing none other, then I will close the public input. Reports, does the council have any report?
Yes, Mayor. I just have one quick one as far as the business item number 5, Utah Lake Estates. I just need to let you know beforehand that I need to recuse myself from that discussion due to the builder being the same one that's building on my mother's property. And so,
Okay.
Bring it to your attention.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hey,
Any
Mayor,
other-
some positive news. The and Mark can probably fill in the details for me, but the county commission did change direction slightly and approved a higher dollar number on our marina project with what the county will be providing. So that was good news. I think we have money budgeted and we can start moving forward with that project soon.
Thank you very much, Chris. Just a little bit more information on that. We are going to start spending our match on design and engineering and things of that nature. We've got to go through some core permitting as well. And then the funding that the county made available for us will be available about a year from now. And so our intent would be use this year to design it, to get it, designed, permitted, and then we can hopefully start construction on that in spring of 2022. To get that built. So we're excited. I know the residents in that area will be very excited about it. So thank you, Councilmember Karn.
We had our tree lighting last night for the city. Went live on Facebook. Appreciate staff and the Westlake I can't even say it. The choir there. Madrigals. They did a great job. I think we had a fair amount of people tune in. People watched it later. It was great that we were able to kind of keep that tradition going alive for families that haven't been able to come for a while. This was the first warm year, which would have been a nice one to have outside compared to years in the past. But it went great. Appreciate staff for that. We also had the fire truck. I know some of the council was able to make that to its unveiling and debut. I thought that was great that they had the American flag for the grill on the front of that. So lots of exciting things are happening. And that, Mark, do you have anything from administration?
We do. We actually have a rather interesting question that came about, and I'm going to invite Dave Stroud to unmute himself and quickly explain this one to us. It's a question that we received regarding alcohol sales. And I'll let Dave kind of walk us through that policy discussion real quick.
Mayor and council, had a phone call the other day from Maverick. They were doing their yearly whatever audits on their store. And since they've been open, they have not been selling beer from, I believe it's 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. The Alcohol Beverage Control Act of the state of Utah had that written into the code, but a few years ago that was taken out. Our code does not address that. And perhaps I wasn't aware of this, and perhaps many of the rest of us here were not aware of that, either that was in the code or that it was taken out. So I guess the question is to the council, is that something you would like us to look at? Are you okay with beer sales between 1 a.m. and 7 a.m.? Because as of right now, anybody that does have the state license can do that now between those hours. And Maverick did say they will start to go ahead and do that because one, the state law doesn't require it, and two, our code does not require it at the present time.
My opinion would
I
be
like
to
it when our code,
stay silent on that.
I like it when our code references state code so that we don't have to come in and always change things. So if the state makes something more restrictive, then ours is just referencing that. And then if there's something we want to be more restricted, then we can proactively do that versus always having to react to state code changing.
And our city code does reference the ABC as well.
So our question really to you all is, if you're comfortable with us continuing to mirror the DABC, then we'll leave it as is. Because this was brought up, if you have any concerns, we'd be happy to bring that back.
I'm comfortable with mirroring state code.
I'm comfortable.
I'm comfortable with that.
I agree.
Okay,
Yeah, thank
fantastic. And then Mayor and Council, just as the last item, we do have need for closed session this evening. So you should have received a link for that earlier this evening. And if not, we'll follow up in making sure that Michael's got a copy of that for his cell phone as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. And department reports, the planning report is in the packet. Stroud, do you have anything to add, or if there's questions, just contact you?
Yeah, any questions, just reach out to me, email, phone call, my cell phone would be great.
Okay, perfect. We'll move on to the public hearing, the drinking water, secondary water, amended impact fee facilities plan and analysis.
Thank you, Mayor. So
Let me-
we're bundling these two items together, it sounds like. So I will go through both. I will start with the water and then go to the sewer. And then just as yes?
Will you remind me who I need to make a panelist from consultant?
Steve Jones and Keith Larson.
Okay, perfect. I will do that right now.
And there's a public hearing, so I'll let the mayor run that, but let me do the staff report and then I'll let the mayor, I guess, run the public hearing. So Mayor and Council, we've been working on updates to our drinking water, secondary water, and sanitary sewer impact fee facilities plans and impact fee analyses. I've given a summary of the revisions proposed in the staff reports. Just a quick snapshot, drinking water is proposed to lower slightly. We have two different drinking water standards, one for those who have groundwater credits or groundwater, that's dropping by about $50 per ERC, which is an equivalent residential connection. And then the other are for those who are using Central Utah water, and that's dropping by about $150. On the secondary water, that's increasing for a ERC by about $1,800 from $74.46 to $92.46. This is consistent with what we've seen in previous versions where our need for secondary water infrastructure is much greater than our need for drinking water infrastructure. In the sanitary sewer impact fees, that is a slight increase from about $838 currently to a proposed $908.14. This is the result of 6 months or more of work and analysis and review. happy to answer any questions. We did have some public comment come in via email earlier that Dave can share with you as well.
Mayor and council, we've forwarded those comments to you. So those comments, you should have those in your email box. We would be more than happy to go through those in more detail. I don't know if either of those individuals are online and wish to just reiterate their comments in public. I
don't know if we want to allow any other public hearing
Mark,
first.
did those just get sent?
Yes, we did. They came in just right before the meeting was coming in earlier this afternoon. So we can
Okay.
certainly spend some time during the public hearing portion of that, to go through those.
Neither of those are currently in attendance in the meeting.
I would appreciate it if once we hit the public input, obviously up to you, Mayor, but if we could at least have a chance to look at the public input.
Then with that, we'll open the public hearing and go from there. Mark, I don't know if it's you or David, it'd be best to kind of share those input.
Actually, the public comment that we received, one was from Deanne Hewish, who was with the Utah Home Builders Association, Utah Valley Home Builders Association, and the other was from Chriselle. I'm trying to get those pulled up. So one moment, please. Jeremy, if you want to paraphrase the Chriselle's questions, as well as maybe we have Steve Jones. Actually, we could have Steve Jones kind of go through the comment and then give a response to those questions.
That's what I was going to suggest. Yeah, he could explain to you what the question was, and then he could provide his responses. And just as a point of fact, we emailed those responses to the people who emailed them to us. So they've received a written response to their questions just prior to the meeting as well. So I didn't know if you wanted to see if there was any other public comments from people participating live and jump into that, or do that first.
Yeah, we can see if there's any live ones. Is there anybody on? Let's see. I don't see anything.
See.
And I don't have anything else listed. Let me, or that shows.
Okay.
Okay, well then, Steve, if you want to go ahead and read the question, and then you can provide your response for the emails you received.
So that we'll start with Chriselle's, and then Deanne Hewish's email. We would probably need to invite Keith to potentially address some of those questions.
Yes, I'll read the question and then give my response. So the first question is on level of service. The city states that it has changed the proposed level of service to more accurately match the requirements provided by the Utah Division of Drinking Water and actual demand experienced by the drinking water system. The values represented, however, do not match the requirements of DDW, Division of Drinking Water. Each of the level of service criteria will be reviewed independently. So my overall response to that is, before we had state minimum requirements that were for the whole state. And so minimum requirements, meaning you have to at least design your system for those minimum requirements, which the city did have a level of service that matched those minimum requirements, regardless of what the water use was. So now that the state code has changed, where each city gets a individual minimum sizing requirement calculated by the state, it's true. It's a minimum sizing requirement based on actual usage for the city. It's a minimum requirement, meaning the city does not have to set their level of service right at the minimum. That would actually probably be irresponsible depending on the requirement. So a better way of stating that it more accurately matches is that we now are taking the usage, we're taking the minimum sizing requirement into consideration, and we recommended to the city a level of service that was responsible to make sure the city does not run out of water, but is not higher than is necessary which the old state requirement basically forced the city to do. So that's my response to that first one.
Mayor, just
yes.
real quickly, Steve, this is the standard. If you recall back in, I believe it was last February, we adopted that new engineering standard for our water. And this was so that we could adopt that lower standard. And again, we did that as soon as we possibly could to get moving on that. So we were very excited about that. And obviously that was a change which is now being addressed in this impact fee update. So Steve, thank you. Continue.
Correct. So the second question or comment is about methodology used to determine existing system capacity. There's two components. The maximum pipe velocity of 5 feet per second is a reasonable standard when used without fire flow. Fire flow events are generally based on residential pressures rather than water velocity. I believe the city modeling does take fire flow events into account, but it would be beneficial to incorporate into calculations as the stated method may artificially increase pipe sizing. So if I understand the question or comment correctly, we did not use 5 feet per second for any design standard. The level of service is a pressure. We need to maintain a pressure, whether that's during a fire flow event or during everyday peaking or peak events. So the 5 feet per second was only used to split the fire flow component and the everyday sizing component of the pipe, the cost. So the cost does not change. 5 feet per second was only a method to distribute the cost proportionally to the fire suppression system and the operational system. So that's how it was used. I think that answers the comment that was made. The second one was the use of 375 gallons per day per ERC has changed from previous studies. Previous studies used fixture counts, which essentially summed to 400 gallons per day per ERC. In keeping the methods consistent, the 375 should be updated to 267 gallons per day per ERC based on the city's average daily use. This comment is a little bit confusing because they're actually referring to 3 different independent criteria. So the 267 gallons, not gallons per day, but gallons, is the indoor equalization storage requirement. The 375 gallons per day is the peak day flow rate per ERC. And then the fixture units was just a way to calculate non-residential ERCs. So I'm not quite sure where they're getting at with the question. And so that was my response. Next section, water source and remaining capacity. Their comment, the Division of Drinking Water reviewed data provided by the city and established peak day source, peak day source demand per ERC of 375 gallons per day. The city level of service doubles this standard for redundancy. While redundancy is an admirable goal, the requirement of 100% source redundancy should be reviewed in light of the following. DEQ standard of 375 already includes a variability factor of 29% above the peak recorded information of 291 gallons per day per ERC. The city approach is adding redundancy onto redundancy. So my comment about this, I was actually involved in helping the state come up with their variability factor. That variability factor only covers the variance of year-to-year water use. Each year, the peak day or the average use changes depending on weather and other factors. And that variability is to account for that. The city redundancy, if you want to call it that, is only a pump redundancy. All pumps fail, and it's irresponsible of the city to not have a way to pump the water if a pump were to fail, because pumps will fail. It takes anywhere from a day to months to replace that pump. And that redundancy is not duplicative of the state redundancy. It's just for pumping. The wholesale water that is not pumped does not have that redundancy. So the There are two different redundancies. It's not redundancy on top of redundancy, two different ones. One is specific only to pumps, whether that's a well or a pump station. Second component of their comment, the need for all system sources to be available at full redundancy for peak day should be evaluated. Essentially, the city standard is assuming failure of all systems at the same time, which should be evaluated and justified. Again, the city's redundancy is based on pumps, and the city needs to have a way to meet city demand if a pump fails. And that's what, so if you have a pump station and you only have one pump in there, if it were to fail, that whole zone would be out of water, and that is unacceptable. So having two pumps, yes, you could call that double redundancy, but it's very responsible and common for cities to have that redundancy. If the one pump fails, the city is now on one pump, and give the city time to replace or repair that second pump. So that's the purpose of it.
Steve?
Yes.
Can you clarify? That's not a new standard, correct? That's been in place for a long time?
That is correct. That is consistent with the previous level of service. The previous impact fee had that included also. Again, it doesn't apply to the wholesale water. Central Utah supplies their own redundancy. If their well goes down, they already have a redundancy. So the city does not need to provide that additional. It's only the city's own pumping facilities that have that redundancy. And that is not a new thing. It's a carryover from the last impact fee. And quite frankly, it's actually in a different code in the state that you have to remove the largest pump from a pumping system and still be able to meet the peak day demand. So it's related to that also, just I guess said in a different way, if you want to say that. Next comment, North Shore, the study states that an ERC count was not allocated to specific wells or Central Utah Water Conservancy District connections, as all sources are in the same zone, which is true. The impact fee on the secondary and the drinking water system, there's only one service area, and that's the whole city. This statement contradicts North Shore's requirement to attach well 7 for their development to continue because all existing wells within North Shore site were allocated elsewhere. So this is true. If you want to look at it in a physical sense, when the older wells pump, yes, some of that water is going to go to North Shore, but the communication to the developer was that all of the existing wells were allocated to previous development. They were already paid for, or other developers have paid for that capacity. And the new well number 7, had capacity that North Shore could move their water rights to. That was the communication, not that the physical water would only come from well 7. And that well 7 needed to be hooked up so it can be connected to the system again as a whole, which is what North Shore is helping with. Next question, storage facilities and remaining capacity. The city's level of service has increased from 211 gallons per ERC according to the DDW letter to 267 gallons, a 21% increase. It appears that this increase is matching the increase of water right requirement from the DDW to city standards. This increase should be justified. Again, this is the same discussion where the minimum sizing requirement calculated for the city by the state, again, is a minimum sizing required. That's the lowest the city could elect for their level of service. Because of several reasons, and I'll list them, I'm recommending that you do add 21% to that minimum sizing requirement for the following reasons. So for one, that calculation by the state used data through 2018. If you look at 2019 data, that is already higher than the calculation by the state with the variability factor included. So and there's numerous reasons why that water use in 2019 was higher. It was a dry year. The city started to use Central Utah water, which is surface water. Surface water interacts with groundwater, making the city need to flush water out of the system through hydrants to maintain water quality. So more water was used for that. And going forward, the city will have to continue to do that to maintain water quality. So I added 0.01 acre feet per ERC to account for this higher water usage in 2019. Another is water loss. The city has a very brand new system. Your water loss is pretty low compared to older systems. Over time, though, the system I would anticipate would have more water loss as other systems do. So I think it's responsible for the city to include some amount for water loss that will occur as the city system gets older. If you don't, that usage would have to be paid for some other way. So I think it's responsible to add 0.015 acre feet per ERC to account for water loss, which is closer to an average water loss of a city in Utah and really in the United States. It's about the same. Next is water quality flushing, which I talked about the city starting to do in 2019. Again, I'm recommending a 0.01 acre foot per ERC to account for water quality flushing to maintain water quality in the system, particularly because the city now has two sources of water. They have surface water, and the pipes need to be flushed of particulates that occur because of the mixing of the two sources of water to maintain water quality. The fourth is a drought contingency, and I added 0.02 acre feet for drought contingency. The secondary system currently is being supplemented by the drinking water system. It's planned that the two systems will be completely separate and independent, but still with drought, where sources of water could be shut off at any given time because of drought or because of algal bloom or whatever it might be. I'm recommending a 0.02 acre foot ERC per ERC. You would still need to do water restrictions, but that's to account for drought contingencies in the future. Fire, and then the last one, fire suppression. So is recommended that the city includes some, and it's 0.005 acre feet per ERC to account to serve fire suppression, water, fire flow test, fire hydrant testing, etc. So those are my reasons why I'm recommending not setting it exactly at the minimum sizing requirement. I, in my professional opinion, believe that that's irresponsible of the city. I'm saying 21%, that might be an arbitrary number, but I think it's a responsible number for the city to plan for their water system. So that's my response. It's actually a response to several other questions, so I won't have to go through all that again. But higher water use in 2019, water loss, water quality flushing, drought contingency, and fire suppression. Next one is emergency storage criteria changed from a flat 150,000 gallons per tank to 100 gallons per ERC. So for tanks larger than approximately 800,000 gallons, which servicing more than 1,500 ERC will change. This change will increase emergency storage dramatically. So they have an example of a 3 million gallon tank where there's 240,000 gallons of fire storage, 267 gallons per ERC storage requirement. Previous standard of 150,000 gallons of emergency storage will service 9,775 ERC. Updated standard 267 plus 100 gallons. Emergency would serve 7,520 ERC. So this standard would provide for 752, sorry, 1,000 gallons of emergency storage. So when the requirement, so current requirement is 400 gallons per ERC, we're recommending to reduce that to 267. It was assumed that the 400 gallons per ERC, which was a state requirement forced on the city, we assumed that that was enough to account for emergency storage. Now that it's being reduced to only account for equalization storage, we're saying it's responsible to include 100 gallons per ERC, drop the 150,000 minimum per tank, and that would be a responsible emergency storage amount to for a level of service. That actually reduces the overall storage requirement. So before, you would actually have probably over 1 million gallons of emergency storage if you did the calculation, versus the response's calculation of 752,000 gallons. Water rights and remaining capacity. It says there's still a dispute on the increase of water right requirement from the drinking water, Division of Drinking Water letter to the adopted standard of 0.3 acre feet. Again, that's my list of why I believe it is responsible for the city to have 21% of redundancy in that number. Growth
Dave,
projections, yes.
if I could, I just also want to interject. Mayor and council, we discussed this at length last year when we reduced the standard, and this is the standard you adopted. This is basically, a continuation of their challenge of what you've already done almost a year ago. So again, the state gave us a minimum. They did not tell us that the 0.3 acre feet is inappropriate. They just merely calculated the minimum. So Steve's response to this is the same as he gave. So we'll continue forward with the next question.
I'm almost done. Growth projection, it appears that there appears to be a disconnect between the growth projections between the drinking water, secondary water, and sewer studies. The growth assumptions match exactly. It's the units that make it look like they don't match. So an ERC doesn't necessarily, or a drinking water ERC doesn't necessarily match a sewer ERU, which is equivalent residential unit, which doesn't necessarily match an acre foot irrigated acre in the secondary system. So that's why it appears to be differences, but the growth rates are exactly the same. And they are that because we hashed it out several times to make sure that they matched exactly. Secondary water impact fee facility plan. Yes.
For example, a Walmart, it may use the drinking water the same as 20 homes, but it may use the irrigation the same as 100 homes, but it could discharge the sewer the same as 80 homes. So while the growth is all the same, you're not going to see the same ERU counts year to year in each of the reports, because again, the way non-residential impacts the system is different between the three different systems. And so you wouldn't expect the numbers to match. But the growth is exactly matching, and that was prepared by Zions Bank. And all three reports include that Zions Bank growth memorandum in the addendum, and they've all matched that. So they are identical.
That is correct. Cost of existing and future facilities. They have a comment about North Shore, well number 7. And piping is currently master planned as drinking water. I'm not really sure about the comment there, but it is being, when we tested that well, it is drinking water quality. So it's being equipped to be both drinking water, it's being equipped to drinking water standards, but you will be able to use it in the secondary system if necessary. While the level of service and ultimate, this continuing with the comments, while the level of service and ultimate impact fee is based on irrigated acreage, the use of a typical single-family lot of 0.24 acres is high based on the current development patterns within the city. The 0.24 acre lot translate in approximately 15,000 square foot average lots with allowances for parks and planter strips. If the per lot acreage was reduced to more representative level based on current and future development patterns, some of the improvements listed may not be necessary in the 10-year timeframe while providing service to the projected growth. I can say that currently, when we looked at the data, the usage is almost exactly matching the level of service. That's not surprising because you actually, if you remember, you created rates, water user rates, to exactly match the level of service. So if people use more than the level of service, it's pretty aggressively punitive. And so again, the usage is actually matching the level of service, which is a good sign. So we don't see the reduction yet. If there is one, it would show up probably in a future analysis. But currently, usage is matching almost exactly the level of service. North Shore Project 9, I think this is more of a question for Keith, so he might respond to this, but Project L9 North Shore Lift Station only shows the city's portion of the construction cost. Does the developer portion need to be included to receive impact fee reimbursement? I think the answer is yes, but I'll let Keith or Jeremy handle that one. And last one, as stated in the drinking water section, there appears to be a disconnect in the growth projections. Okay, so same comment. So the growth assumptions do exactly match between the studies. And that's the end of the comments. Keith, do you want to respond to the previous one?
I think I can answer that one because I was able to think about it for a second, but yeah. On the growth question, they brought up 3 times, but it seems to be a fundamental misunderstanding of the difference between the growth matching and the ERC's matching, as you explained. I'm not really sure why there's the confusion on the Lift Station 9 reimbursement. The developer's portion, which I believe, that will be coming to the council on a future agenda as far as a reimbursement agreement with D.R. Horton for the lift station. And we've tentatively agreed that it's a 60-40 split. But as far as the developer's portion, that's not impact fee eligible. We're not offering or proposing impact fee credits for their project capacity proportion. We're going to enter into a reimbursement agreement for the upsize, the extra capacity, and that has been included 100% in the impact fee. Now, we're only recouping the portion of that that's going to be used in the next 10 years. And that's consistent with impact fee law. If the area that we're buying capacity takes 30 years to develop, we will spread out the recouping of those costs over 30 years. So growth in the next 10 years will pay us proportionate share of the city's cost. The cost we're paying for the upsize will recoup that proportionately in this IFFP window, and then there'll be a remaining balance which will recoup in future windows, with the theory that by the time that area is fully developed, we'll recoup 100% of the cost. So I'm not really sure I understand the question, but yes, we've included everything that's impact fee eligible. We've included fully in the impact fee plan, with it proportionally spread out, so that the proportion of it used in the next 10 years will be paid in the next 10 years, and beyond that will be passed on to future impact fee windows. And then there was another, I'm sorry, Mark, did you have something?
Yeah, I was going to say, Keith, did you have any other comments on that issue?
No, Jeremy's covered it.
Perfect. And then there was one additional comment that came in from Deanne with the Utah Valley Home Builders Association. And Jeremy, is that what you were about to move towards?
Yes, sir. I was going to answer that, and then Keith can add anything that I may have missed. But there was a comment on from Deanne and the Utah Home Builders, which is the cost that we've included in here to develop these plans. And it's typical that whatever we spend to develop these plans is included in the impact fee cost.
Jeremy, why don't you read that? Can you read the email from Deanne?
Absolutely.
That'd be more appropriate so we don't miss anything.
Yes. Here's the comment. The Utah Valley Home Builders Association appreciates the opportunity to participate appreciated the opportunity to participate in the open house held on November 12th concerning the IFFP and IFAs for sewer, water, and irrigation. Mr. Lappin has continued communication with us on the reports and answered questions I have emailed him. The Utah Valley Home Builders Association and our members are committed to the fair and reasonable fees for new development that provides utilities for new citizens who live in Saratoga Springs. We are available at any time to review and provide information and feedback on these and other reports. I am aware that currently there are some unanswered questions from developers. We would respectfully ask that all concerns are addressed before a new ordinance is voted on. Also, we respectfully are concerned about upholding the spirit of the Impact Fee Act when it states that impact fees can include the current cost for the consultant fees incurred by the specific IFFP and IFFA reports that are created. And then they quote Utah Code, the section of that 1136A305C, and they close with, it has been customary and in the spirit of the act to only include the actual consultant fees that were charged for the IFFP and IFA that is being considered. The IFA, the sewer IFA, includes a line item of $58,909 instead of just the two specific costs for the IFA and IFFP of $14,800. And I have not responded yet to Deanne on that, but my response will be that when we provided her a breakdown of the $59,000, we had it in 4 different items. There was a cost in which Bowen and Collins reviewed the future service area for Toguayo. There was that was a small cost. The biggest chunk of the cost was in developing a capital facilities plan. And then there was a cost for the IFFP and IFA. Now, Deanne is suggesting that we ignore the 2 items at the beginning and just look at the IFFP and IFA. However, I think that is not in the spirit of the law, because both the Toguayo analysis and especially the CFP create the information and the foundation on which the IFFP and IFA were built on. And so the way Bowen and Collins happened to create these categories, the majority of the modeling and the groundwork that was done for the entire process was put in the capital facilities planning. Now, we reduced that cost by 40% just to make sure that any efforts that we put in the modeling that had to do with looking at the existing system, existing efficiencies, were not charged to the impact fee. So the CFP, and Keith can give the numbers, I don't have it in front of me, we actually took 40% off the top and did not pass that into the final IFFP calculation. But to suggest that the city not include any of the cost of developing the CFP or the Toguayo analysis in this, I think is incorrect, in that the work done to those studies was critical and instrumental into getting the information needed to finalize the IFFP and IFA. And I don't know, Keith, if you want to add any more comment to that.
No, you explained it really well. And I would just note, I know that Home Builders has expressed concern in the past about including future studies or studies that were completed 5 years ago. But we have not done any of that. This is only for the current studies. And to suggest that the capital facilities plan not be included, that would be something entirely new that I have not heard before. And I agree is not consistent with the spirit of the law.
And where that comes from is that's not in the current version. And so that we actually addressed that potential confusion early on. And the correction we made to the reports was to eliminate those 4 different categories and to lump it all together, and just to say, and to be more actually accurate in saying, here's the cost that the city incurred to develop this IFFP and IFA. So when Deanne references these previous categories, that is not in the current version. And that's one reason why we got rid of segregating those out, is we wanted to avoid the confusion that effort was not directly related to the IFFP IFA. So we feel very confident that the, just under $60,000 we spent on Bowen and Collins preparing these are all defensively and directly related to the cost the city incurred to develop the IFFP and IFA.
So I believe, Mayor and Council, that tackles pretty much all of the questions. you know, obviously, one of the requests that came in was Chriselle asked if we would hold off on adopting this for until our next council meeting. You certainly have that option. I believe we've addressed all the concerns. I believe they're all very defensible positions that we've represented. The challenge is this: if you postpone until our next meeting in January, then it will postpone the effective date by roughly a month. So in the event of those fees that are going up, it means that instead of 120 days before we can start collecting those fees, it would basically kick it out to be 150 days approximately.
90 to 120.
I'm sorry, 90 to 120. I apologize. And then
So this is on, Mark, if I can get clarification, this is on new approvals. So if they already have existing approvals, then they keep the old fees, or is it, how does that work?
It's for any impact fees that haven't been paid. So it kicks the ball out. Now, on the flip side, the water impact fee, the culinary drinking water impact fee is going down. And so if you were to approve this tonight, that impact fee would be effective as of tomorrow. So it's kind of an ironic thing that, you know, two of the fees are going up, one of them's going down, and we're being asked to hold off on taking action on all of them. So while I respect that request, you know, in the response to their questions, it's really up to you as to decide whether you want to move forward or not. My only concern is you know, from a practice standpoint, if you don't take action on the drinking water, then we're going to get criticized because we didn't take action on the drinking water since it reduces the rates. And if you do take action on the sewer and the secondary water, then, you know, the comment will be, hey, we didn't provide an opportunity for comments. Now,
I have a clarification question as well before you move on, Mark.
Sure.
So when we lower fees, it goes into effect immediately, but if you raise fees, it's 120 days?
It's 90 days, but in this case, if we don't adopt it till the next meeting, it would be roughly 120 days.
I love that. Fees go down, they get the benefit immediately. Fees go up, they have 100 days basically to push everything through they possibly can to avoid the new fee. I just think that's pretty ironic.
Matter of clarification, Councilman. Actually, the law says that none of these impact fees go in effect until 90 days after passage. We've just always taken the position that we're going to charge the lower rate as
immediately
option of the ordinance.
So we've chosen to do it immediately, though we don't have to.
Even though we don't have to.
Okay.
Precisely.
Mark, are we not meeting the 15th?
We did not have another meeting scheduled for this. If you would like to postpone it, then I would certainly recommend that we meet again in the month of December to adopt the fees. So,
but Chris, we never meet in the Christmas, the second. If you see the schedule for next year, we don't usually meet 2 times in December.
And so again, if this was a lot to digest, and I really do apologize that we went through that with such detail. But again, since we did
on the record
comments, we wanted to make sure and get it on the record. We wanted to make sure that we responded, and we felt that that was well worth the time, especially given the you know, potential that we wanted to address this. Now, again, if you decide that you are comfortable postponing the decision, I would suggest that, you know, rather than wait until January, maybe we convene again next week just to adopt these 2 items. You've done the public hearing tonight. There's no need to necessarily do that again. But again, it would be entirely up to you as to how you'd want to move forward.
And Mayor, are we still in public hearing?
We are. So everything we've got's done, right, Mark?
That is all the questions that were received up to this point that I'm aware of.
Perfect. Then I'll close the public hearing and open
Is anybody else in the Zoom that
David said there was.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Nobody's come on since.
So any comments from
why would they?
Yeah, I've got some, but I can wait for others if I know other people have comments too.
Well, I'll just make it brief. Thank you, Councilman Porter. I'm comfortable moving forward. I know, you know, the development community wants to confirm that they're not being unfairly penalized through fees, and they brought up some great comments. And it's been obvious, though, through your discussions from our consultant, Jeremy, that we've been very thoughtful about it. And I agree with the statements. I wouldn't be comfortable in holding off or reducing some of these things, because then what happens would we'd be putting additional costs potentially on the back of existing residents to pay for new development. So I think the development community, they've been involved in the input. All the questions have been answered and they're being fairly treated, and we need to fairly treat our existing residents. So I'm personally comfortable moving forward, especially considering every question's been addressed on public record, and they got the benefit. Normally they'd be limited to 3 minutes and they got about an hour on this one. So
yeah, so I would agree. I mean, the main reason argument for delaying was they needed time to have to make sure that these concerns were addressed. I believe that those concerns have all been addressed. The one I wanted to just follow up, I believe I heard the answer from Keith Larson, but I just wanted to follow up to make sure I heard what I thought I heard. You do this in multiple cities, and that's why I guess I'm asking you or Stephen, whoever can answer. But it's typical to include these supporting studies that are required in order for the impact fee analysis and plan. It's typical to include the cost of those in the fee increase, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The law does not reference specifically the IFFP and the IFA. It just references planning efforts. And so that's how we've always interpreted it.
Okay.
Do you agree, Steve?
Yes, and we've actually worked with Deanne and with Keith. I think it's got to be at least 3 or 4 other Utah County cities, Keith.
Yeah.
And we've talked with Deanne almost with every single impact fee approval on this issue. I think we've got it covered. I think Keith's doing it right. So
okay,
I don't really have a concern.
If I could
I just wanted to get a clarification that we're not doing something that hasn't been done in every other city in the state. Okay.
Just to clarify and give you guys some context, this is kind of the issue du jour for the Utah Valley, and the big issue is as Keith pointed out, people in the past said, "Oh, in 3 years, I'm going to spend another $50,000 to review this," and they were including predicted future estimated costs. And we made sure very clear none of these reports include future anticipated costs. We included only actually incurred known costs. And that was the big thing that they were pushing for. And that was the one thing we made sure we were strictly compliant with. There are no estimated costs included here. You know, oh, in 3 years, we're going to hire a consultant to look at this. We did not include any of those estimations.
Okay.
That was the
There
big
are
thing.
lawyers that say that is appropriate.
Okay. With that clarification, I feel like all of the concerns that were brought up were addressed. We've already had the public hearing, and so we wouldn't have another public hearing. So I don't see any reason to delay passage.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion if the council's ready.
okay, everyone's jumping. I'll move that we approve public hearing item 1 as stated on the agenda, with including the ordinances dated today.
I'll second.
Yeah, I have a first from Councilman Wilden, a second from Councilman Porter. Any further discussion on the motion?
Sorry, were there any staff findings and conditions?
I didn't think there was any, but
I didn't think there were. I was just looking really quick. That's why I didn't make the motion, but thanks.
Yeah, they're all included in the ordinance. So you've
Thank you.
adopting the ordinance.
Oh, Kevin, I apologize. There were 2 slight things that you wanted to include. There was a slight modification in the ordinance, deleting 4 words that we did, like a typo. If you remember.
Yeah, you were the one that brought those up. So why don't you address those with the council?
I totally apologize. I should have brought this up sooner.
Yeah, thanks.
There was 2 little typos, and Kevin thought it was more transparent to have you guys address those during the passage than to change what was published a week ago. So the first one is in section 70502. It references 3 service areas, but that's an old carryover. There's now only a single service area. And the second item was a typo we found in a table in the sewer impact fee, in which there was just a math error where it listed planning engineering fees it just did the math wrong. So I think it listed it currently at 58,000. But the correct number is at 58,099. I think the old version had it like at 16, 17,000. So if you could just include by reference the corrections I just stated in your motion.
And did second.
Okay, amended first, amended second.
I'll amend it. Sorry, I was on mute.
He'll verbally do it. Okay. McComber,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Karn,
Aye.
Wilden,
Aye.
Tedesca.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We have our business items, the acceptance of the fiscal year 2019-2020 audit.
So we just finished our audit and we have our auditor, Ron Stewart, here to address that a little bit for us.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Great. Well, like I said, I'm Ron Stewart. I'm with Gilbert and Stewart CPAs. And we were contracted to do the audit for 2020. So what I'd like to do is just real quickly go through kind of what we do as auditors and how we come to the conclusions of. So when we do an audit of your city, there's really three things that we're looking at. We have to make sure that the financial statements that you see are materially correct. You can align those numbers. We're looking to see that the internal controls of the organization are designed, implemented, and working, and that we're in compliance with state law. So what I'd like to do is just really quick go through how we come to those conclusions and the opinions that we've come to. So our auditor's report, the opinion that we give on the financial statement says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the city of Saratoga Springs as of June 30, 2020, and the respective changes in financial position and where applicable cash flows thereof, and the respective budgetary comparison for the general fund for the year that ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. That's considered an unmodified opinion, a clean opinion, or the best opinion that you can receive. How we came to that conclusion is we take a look at the books and the records of the city, and then we perform a number of tests on those records. The most secure way you can verify a balance is to confirm it with an outside party. So we send confirmations. We'll send out confirmations for cash, accounts receivable, debt, and a lot of the major intergovernmental revenues that come into the city. We look at a significant number of invoices throughout our process. We'll start with just a random sample of invoices. We'll look at those to make sure that they're properly coded, that they hit the GL in the right way, that the check and the invoice match. And that gives us a good sense of how the city is doing as far as their controls, and also that things are being reported correctly. We'll also pull invoices for capital assets. We'll pull a number of invoices after the end of the year to assure that that those are being coded in the proper period. And we'll also do that for just general expenses to make sure those are being recorded properly. We perform tests and recalculate balances as far as some of the estimates that are made, payroll accruals, vacation accruals, some of those things that have balances that are calculated. We'll recalculate those to make sure those are accurate. And then we do analytical reviews. We'll look at the last year's and compare it to this year at the beginning of our audit. That'll help us kind of give an idea of where we want to go, what things we want to look at. We'll do that as we're doing the testing of balances, and then we'll do it again at the end of the audit to ensure that we've captured everything that we needed to see that were variances. If we see something that's out of control or out of whack or seems to be larger than it should be, then we'll start to investigate and look into those balances, asking questions and pulling invoices and samples. And then we also do a significant number of other tests to test the balances of the city. Through those tests and through those procedures, that's how we can come to the conclusion that we feel that you can rely on those financial statements that they're materially correct. The second thing we do is look at internal controls of the city. We want to make sure that your controls are properly designed, that they're implemented and they're working effectively. And we'll do that through a number of tests as well. We'll do interviews, we'll do observations, and then we'll do walkthroughs, where we'll take an invoice and walk it through the whole process of how it gets to the financial statements, making sure that all the controls that are in place are being followed along that way. While we don't necessarily give an opinion on internal controls, if there is something that we see through our process, this would be where we would let you know of those problems. If there's just a significant portion of the city that doesn't have a control, or those controls are just not working, we would consider that to be a material weakness. If those controls are implemented and designed but are just not effective, and there's a couple of instances of that, that's what we would consider a significant deficiency. Through our testing, through the interviews and observations, we found nothing in the city that would be considered to be a material weakness or a significant deficiency. So we feel like the controls are working, that you have good controls, they're designed properly, they're working effectively. The third thing that we do is look at state compliance. Our opinion on state compliance reads, in our opinion, the city of Saratoga Springs complied in all material respects with the state compliance requirements referred to above for the year ended June 30th, 2020. So we feel like you're in compliance with state law, although we did notice a couple of instances that we need to report to you. One of those is the state auditor's office came out during the year with a fraud risk assessment, which was just a way for each city to kind of evaluate themselves and to see their risk with fraud. That was supposed to be done and turned into the state auditor by the 30th of June, and then presented to you, the city council, by the 31st of December. And from my understanding that you're going to talk about that fraud risk assessment tonight, and hopefully approve that. So we'll have that requirement out of the way. So basically, you've already completed everything you needed to, except for the part that we didn't get it up there appropriate. And the other one is the fund balance is in excess of the allotted amount by the state. So the state says that only so much of your general fund balance can be kept. The rest of it needs to be moved to a different fund, and we have exceeded that limit. So if we're going to have a finding, I'd say that's probably one of the good ones to have if you can have a good finding. So that is really quickly what we do as auditors, how we come to the conclusions that we do, and the procedures that we went through to come to those conclusions. And I'd be more than happy to answer any questions if anybody has them.
I don't have any, but I appreciate the level of detail each year. It's so encouraging to see such great results. And didn't always have that in the beginning when I was first on the council. It's much nicer to be reminded of that we're doing the right thing. So thank you.
You're welcome.
With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move we accept business item 1, the FY 2019-2020 audit as presented.
I'll second.
I have a first from Councilman Carn, a second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion? Podeska?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have the approval of fraud assessment, business item 2.
Thank you.
Mayor and
Thank
Council,
you for your time.
This is the following up with the state compliance that Ron just mentioned. We are in a low category. We certainly could go down to a very low category. However, we did not want to commit to requiring you into additional training unless you so chose. But those are some things that we can work on for next year. There's some policy things that we can do. Again, we can adopt those in next year's budget if we choose. The challenge that we have is again, this was, I believe, a change that took place this year, and we just didn't have it on our radar early enough in the season. So again, we're at a low risk level. I guess we get a gold star if we get to a very low level. But
what do you get for that gold star? Anything?
Just a proverbial gold star.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
The gratitude of John Dougal.
All right, so we'd ask that you approve the risk assessment and the processes that we'd outlined in the staff report. Jana did a great job with that.
Just
Okay.
curious if they do their own fraud assessment at the state level. I'm just curious.
Now, I appreciate the question, and I'm going to avoid answering that in my usual cynical way.
I'm not as worried about you guys as I am the Salt Lake, but that's all right.
Nice question, Councilman.
Okay, I'll entertain the motion.
I'll move that we approve business item 2, resolution R20-50 dated today.
First from Councilman Wilden, second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion? Wilden,
Aye.
Karn,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Podeska,
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We have business item 3, Canton Ridge preliminary plat, Fieldstone applicant.
Hi, Mayor and Councilman. Let me share my screen here.
Gina, is there an applicant that I need to make?
LeGrand, is he on? I don't know.
Yes, let me.
Yes, him, and I don't know if he's got his engineer on or not.
All right, what's the engineer's name?
Jeremy? He's not on.
Jason Harris, I believe, is also on.
Okay, so Jason Harris as well. All right, we have this evening, we have Canton Ridge, Canton Ridge preliminary plat before you. It is an 89 lot subdivision with 3.12 acres of open space. It is located over, you'll remember the Rushton annexation, Fieldstone annexation over here in the west portion of town, just west of Rocky Ridge Lane. It is, let's see here, we have approximately, let's see, acreage wise, we are, total acres, I believe, is like 32 or 31. I apologize about that, but it is in the staff report. So let's see, it is 89 lots, if I can get my screen to go here. And we have open space in the form of a detention basin, a city park, and a trail that goes on the west side of the subdivision that will be between the future Foothills Boulevard and the subdivision. And so they have proposed different phases on this. They will be doing the city park as the first phase here, and then phase 2, 3, and 4. And then they do own this property here. They are working on purchasing that property from UDOT. This is UDOT property here, as well as Rushton property. But they are working on that and getting the easement secured for the trail. And along this, that will be contiguous with Fitness Park up here. Let me show you the landscape plans to show you the trail connection here. You'll see that it starts from the north. There is a connection here to the north from the inside the subdivision that will then the trail, which will be city dedicated to the city, that is part of our Trails Master Plan, will go along the subdivision with benches and park amenities. So there's several sections here that we have. They'll have connections into the subdivision for ease of access for the residents. And then the city park, sorry, there's several sections here. It's a pretty simple subdivision. It's taken a bit to get here, but you'll notice that the park, in order for the city to take on the maintenance of the trails and such, they do have to have a contiguous connection from the trail, from the park to the trail that would be along that Mountain View corridor. So here you'll see the park. There is a playground, parking, And there, we did require them to connect to fitness parks, so we have a contiguous connection between our parks. So there is that, and then just the, you know, the city, they'll build this according to city standards. Other than that, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of the Canton Ridge subdivision. And if you have any questions, I'm available.
Okay, does the developer have any comments before the council starts?
Sorry, this was, I apologize. This was Canton Ridge, not Utah Lake Estates. LeGrand was with Utah Lake Estates. I do apologize. It doesn't look like Julie is on.
Jason Harris with Fieldstone is on.
Mayor, can I mention something really quickly? I don't think Gina touched on this, but I noticed in the staff report, because we had talked about the trail and the city would be willing to maintain that. However, it had to be contiguous, and what was agreed to was the developer HOA would maintain that until it is contiguous. And I'm not sure that Gina, I'm not, is that one of your conditions? I don't think it's on your conditions of approval in your staff report.
Is it on my, I thought I
don't
put it in there.
believe it is. So we
Okay, that will need to be
add
added.
that as a
Yes.
condition of approval.
I apologize about that. That was a condition that needed to be added. So yeah, the way their phasing plan is that their phasing plan is putting the park in, and then with each phase, they're adding sections of the trail. So let me pull that phasing plan up. So they're not going to be putting the trail in with the very first phase. It will be with each phase. So the HOA will need to maintain the trail until it is all installed, until the city park, because the city park and the city park, I believe, is that right, Kevin? The city park will need to be maintained by the HOA until all of the open space is brought to completion.
Yes, that's what, so the, yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
That was the plan. So typically when it comes to a trail, the city, or a master plan trail, that's included in the transportation master plan, the city will maintain the trail itself, just not the landscaping. And so the developer's request of the city was to maintain the trail, the surface, and the landscaping. And what we had agreed on was we would maintain it if it was contiguous to the city park there. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense for us just to maintain these small segments of trails. And so prior to the developer installing that, and I believe that some of the property needs to be acquired from UDOT. Prior to that happening, the city is agreeing to, or the developer is agreeing to maintain that. And then at some point, the maintenance would be transferred over to the city.
Okay. So gentlemen, that will need to be added in as a condition of approval, that as far as the specific verbiage on that the developer, the HOA will be required to maintain the trails and park until the completion of all open space.
I think it's all open space, even the detention basin, correct?
Correct.
So I would just, when we do it, we'll just say all open space. Okay.
Correct. Thanks, Kevin, for bringing that to my attention. I apologize. I thought I had that in there.
While we're on this slide, if I may, Mayor,
Yes.
by like lot 404, there's just it.
You muted yourself, Stephen.
Sorry, I got to hold space bar. That little space in the circle by 404 that there's not a lot number on, is that just part of the open space, or?
Correct. It is.
And I would guess similar by 312 and then
Yeah.
the left-hand corner.
Correct. So there is property. So it is 15 feet is along the trail. And then there's these little pockets that will have benches and garbage cans and things like that. That these are the kind of the little accesses into the trail. So these will have little green spaces, and they will be part of the trail. The annexation agreement has these little spaces down at 15 feet on the Canton Ridge side, along with 15 feet on the outside of their property was to be included in their open space credits so that they could get the amount that they needed for their whole subdivision. So they have to improve 15 feet outside of their subdivision on that trail. So yes, it does include these pockets.
And they're asking, the request is, or what we've agreed on in theory, is to maintain the trail and then these mini pocket parks.
Yeah, correct. So let me get to the
and the main park at the end, the weird super long triangle, right?
Correct. Let me get to some of the
Sorry,
landscaping here.
Well, before you went on, I think those homes that border the road in the past, what we've done is, especially like Mountain View Corridor, requiring them to put on the plat that they're going to be up against a major road. I think that's something I'd like to see as a condition.
I would actually put it for the whole development.
Right. So on the final plat, or on
Yeah,
each
for-
final
I
plat.
agree with
On
Michael.
each plat, final plat, yeah.
I agree with that.
Because any of these houses are within a few hundred feet, right? So.
Right.
Other comments?
Oh, okay. I just had one. If you could go back to something that shows the whole development. Yeah, that works. I believe it's Fallow Drive. That's a local road connecting onto what will be a major transit corridor. I know that there have been issues around that before, and so that I think if we do put that note on the plat for the entire development, that probably would cover that concern. I just want to make sure that those people are aware that they will be connecting onto a major transportation corridor, and so that's something that they will have to take into account when they.
Okay.
Chris, what did we do up in Harvest Hills on that?
We shut down the road.
Yeah, and then we also, the one that does connect, we made it had to be wider and we didn't allow the houses to be on it, right?
Usually it's a collector. You can't have houses on it, and so that's why I'm like, this is a local road. Do we have anything? I don't believe we have anything in code that requires it to be a collector, but.
No, there is this easement here should be a frontage road. There will be a frontage road that runs along here before the corridor. So before the freeway, there will be a frontage road that runs along here.
Right, but that's
Yeah.
very similar to what we dealt with the
Right.
Mountain View corridor.
But that frontage road will be 50 miles an hour. 45, 50 miles an hour will be that frontage road.
Right. Without a traffic study, I don't know.
Yeah.
It would be.
That was my concern, Chris. You brought up one of my main concerns is that road connecting to the frontage road, which will be very fast. And at the beginning, it's going to be just the one road going really fast.
It'll just be a two-lane road, basically, right? Sorry, I didn't hear that, Gordon.
I can speak to this if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Yeah, anything you can.
So I looked at this, and the thing that would determine collector status would be volume, and we're just not seeing that kind of volume that would dictate a collector. But it is true that it will connect to a frontage road, and it is true that the speed on the frontage road will be much higher than a residential street.
But Gordon, the road that they're talking about here, it'll eventually connect, or Grandview will come up and connect to it, which will be more of the area, I guess, people would get on and off of rather than weave through street after street.
I'm not necessarily worried about through traffic, but the complaint on Aspen Hills Boulevard was the speed coming off of that major road. So I'll defer to the council on this, whether the notification for the entire development or whether we should add a second note for lots on Fallow Drive, noting that road will connect to a high-speed road.
Well, and Chris, my question for Gordon is, does it have to connect? Why is it connecting?
So temporarily it's connected because that will be the connection to the west side homes. So if I'm not mistaken, that road is the through road to reach the development on the other side of what will be the Foothill Boulevard corridor. And so to your point, yes, it will have that. There ultimately will be frontage roads, but in the interim, this is how they will connect to the opposite side of the street. Otherwise, there's no connectivity to that western portion of their subdivision.
And I don't know, I think this is slightly different than Aspen Hills Boulevard because you have those pocket parks right at the corners of that street. So unlike Aspen Hills Boulevard, where it was just a house right smack on the corner. But I do like the idea of a secondary, what did you call it, note on the plat for those?
Note.
I think it's interesting, the traffic calming there at Loveland and Fallow. That's interesting as well. That's, if you look up at Loveland Lane, that's some traffic calming. That's very narrow. That's causing very narrow. So half of those houses don't have the ability to park in front of their homes, the driveway. It's just, I just picture quite a few cars. I mean, I know you're saying that there's not a lot of cars, but I mean, it's average 2 cars per house, 80 houses all coming around through Fallow onto that road. Plus Rocky Ridge, it's a lot of winding to get down off of Rocky Ridge to Grandview. It's not an easy shot. And so it'd be very easy for another 70, 60 homes or so to shoot up and come up Meadowside Drive and come here. I know even where I lived, I would hit Grandview, but I'm thinking all the houses west, Jim, up there where you have to go down Rolling Sage. It's not super easy, but
Michael, if you look at page, what page is this? This neighborhood will connect, it looks like, to Founders as well down in Beacon Point. Pretty straight shot.
This is Jason, the applicant. Can I comment, or
Yes.
is it not time for that?
No, go for it.
So I think Chris is talking about something that I think is important here. I think you have to look at this and the access points as much more global than just what you see on this map. The Grandview location and the Beacon Point location, when the Mountain View corridor or Foothill or whoever, it's been called both all along, but when those go in, those are the 2 major intersection points where circulation will happen. This access point will become more of a right in, right out on the frontage road once that system is built. And we're talking years down the road. So all the concerns that you've brought up are where people are going to go. They're going to go to those other intersections first. And the road won't even be built until those intersections are even there. You got to go all the way from Pony Express down to Grandview. And Mark, you could probably comment on this. I know you're the one that's been working on the plan and the foresight on making that connection happen.
Yeah, so we do have, obviously this is going out to design. If you approve one of the later items on the agenda, we'll start the design on Foothill Boulevard. Obviously, timing is going to be kind of critical. Certainly if we have the Pony Express connection to Foothill, and again down to Lariat, I think that will support traffic. I actually think, if I could, speculate, I actually think Rocky Ridge and the western edge of the existing subdivision will probably use this cut through more to get out here onto Foothill, rather than going back to Grandview or going over to Founders in order to connect back onto that. So I think Jason brings up some good points. Again, the traffic volumes don't necessarily suggest that this is a collector road. But certainly if you wish to record, the additional information on the plat, we think that that's something that's very appropriate, and I think would prevent kind of an Aspen Hills kind of request to close the road from happening in the future.
I think that's my main concern. There will be traffic that cuts through, but the roads are designed, I think, to be able to handle that amount. I think it's letting the people know, hey, this is where people are going to come through. There's going to be a lot of traffic on this road. I know people in my neighborhood bought on Talus Ridge Boulevard, not realizing that it was a big road and that it was going to carry a lot of traffic. And so now they're surprised that, that it's going to connect to Eagle Mountain, it's going to connect to, and so I just want people who purchase on Fallow Drive to be aware, hey, you are on the road that everybody's going to drive down. Be aware of that.
But Chris, to your point, Talus Ridge though you can park cars on both sides and you can still drive down the middle.
Well, it's a collector. It's a collector. It's a collector because of that. But this here, you put a car. Yeah, but you could have put a car on both sides, parking on the street. And I'm sorry, you can tell me all day long that these are gonna have 2-car garages. Everyone's gonna park in their garage. No one's gonna park on the road. I can drive you through many places in the city where there are gonna be cars on both sides of this road, and then you're gonna have people. Even if it's right in, right out, you're gonna have people coming down, flying in around the corner. It's just asking for trouble. And I just don't get why it's even there. If you're gonna connect, people can go to Grandview, that people can go down here, like Chris Karn said, there's gonna be connection into Oakwood, to the Beacon Point area. It just doesn't make sense why you're creating this problem. And I'm sorry, your transportation all it does is show, oh, there's this main road over here. People can go that way. But if it's just as bad as up at Jacobs Ranch, when you get up in Jacobs Ranch, it's horrible to get down onto Redwood Road. You have to wind through all these turns and corners. Same thing with Rocky Ridge. It's not easy to get to Grandview. They're going to come down here and they're going to be driving through. So to your point, Chris, you're talking about just the houses on Fallow. I think all the houses on Loveland to Meadow side should have it on their plat, because that's going to be a lot more cars than they think that's going to be happening with a small little community in the backside of the development.
It sounds like the concern is disclosure, and we're fine.
It's not just disclosure; it's also creating traffic problems, creating accidents, bad neighbors, people hitting cars, hit and runs. We've had that issue up in Harvest. We've had that issue in Grandview. We have it all over.
Can I make one suggestion?
Thank you for sharing. What I'm saying is, though, we're fine with disclosing on the plat the concerns that you're bringing up. In addition to that, as a home builder, we provide these disclosures in a more extensive manner than even what the plat is describing. So we're aware of it, and we understand what's going on, and we've reviewed all of these plans with staff, and it is appropriate.
I know you review them with staff, but that's going to tick me off, because I am a city council member and I'm here to represent the citizens, not just the citizens that are going to move into your neighborhood, but the ones who live in the community around these people. So I don't appreciate you saying you talk to staff and it's appropriate. You're here to the council to get our approval. And I'm not going to give my approval if I don't think that this is a safe transportation pattern. I need to be shown factually that this is wide enough. I think that this road should either be wide enough so you can have a car parked on both sides and 2 cars can drive down the middle. I do not believe it is. I think if 2 cars are parked on either side of the road, it's going to be very difficult for the 2 cars to pass each other, especially if you have cars on that traffic control of Loveland and Fallow as well. So I'm personally not going to approve this because I don't think it's safe, but I'm 1 vote of 5. I also don't like the weird shaped open space. You're getting credit for that weird space down at the bottom. And that looks really awkward to me. And if we're connecting that, if we have another developer who owns that land, or if it's state land or whatever, what we're going to do to make that look more and make that more usable than have that super narrow triangle at the back. I'm done with my comments. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a comment, Mayor, if I might.
Yes.
The concern about about ingress traffic on that Fallow Drive. We might consider some sort of traffic calming measure on the entrance there. That might help. And I'm happy to explore that with the applicant.
What would that look like, Gordon?
Not exactly sure yet. It might be a choker similar to what you see at the east side of that street.
What is the point of that choker at Loveland and Fallow? Is that to slow the fast traffic coming off of Foothill once they pass 20 homes there?
No, it's just simply that choker is there because of the north-south street. The standards call for traffic calming whenever you have a street that's relatively straight for 1,000 feet or more. And the reason it's a choker is because it's been proven that people drive at a speed that they feel comfortable with. So if a street is very wide and they don't feel friction, then regardless of what the speed limit sign says, they're going to drive at a speed that they feel comfortable driving. And what a choker like this does is it grabs the driver's attention, it makes them feel uncomfortable, and they slow down. So we could explore something similar at the west end to calm traffic so they're not diving into that neighborhood off of the frontage road.
Gordon, on this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I just address one thing as well, just really briefly?
Yes.
On this issue. So under the development agreement, it actually talks about possibly using the Foothill Boulevard corridor basically as a local road until the road goes in. So that, I think that was kind of Fieldstone's aim, to have this connection there. That being said, once the road goes in, you can always just dead end that road like you did at Aspen Hills. So that is an option for the council to consider. Just wanted to put that out there so you have another option to think about in making your motion.
Gordon, I had a question on that right-of-way size and the traffic calming. I get Councilman McComber's point with 2 cars parked on each side as the main road. There's areas in the city that I know our public works guys have a hard time. I've tried to tow a trailer through and you're threading it through a needle between 2 cars. Can they turn on that choker point? Is the width there? If I park a car on each side, or a Utah SUV on each side, can you still pull a
in the choker area?
Just down Fallow Drive, and then also the choker area. Can you turn without, if I'm towing a 35-foot camp trailer, which I'm sure somebody up here is going to own one, and they turn there, are they going to drive over the curb to make that turn?
Yeah, they can turn there. Those turns are, it's wide enough for the fire apparatus. So we narrow it down to take away the parking, but still make it wide enough for the fire apparatus. That answer your question?
Yeah.
I do like the suggestion of putting some type of traffic calming at the west side.
And I don't know what that would be offhand. And so
we could let you figure it out, work with the applicant to find a acceptable solution.
I don't have a vote, but I kind of like Kevin's point. We could put in there that when the roads build out, it gets capped off.
Mayor and council, again, one thing that I think is important to recall, and Gina, I don't know if you've got it, but that road ultimately, in the short term as a temporary access, that road will serve as a temporary access to the west side portion of the subdivision. And so you don't have that application in front of you at this point, but I'm sure that's why they need this road, so that they have connectivity to that. And so I think all of these are excellent comments. We will certainly work with the applicant to address those for sure as part of their next phase of development. But as it currently stands, we do need that road to go across for the next phase of development in order to have connectivity. And so, ultimately, we can incorporate all these comments, but we want to make sure that we don't take away their access to the western part of their property at this point.
So,
Mark, there's a
add-
picture of that. There's a picture of that on 31 of 63 showing that connectivity to the west side. I think I see why that's needed for today.
Yeah. And again, if we can cut that off in the future, I think, all of us would probably be fine with that conversation, but we just don't want to cut the access off at this.
Yeah, so council, you actually have the discretion at any point to vacate a public road as long as you go through the noticing. I would suggest, though, if the council is concerned about that and you think you may do that in the future, I think it'd be a great idea to have that be a note on the plat so people are aware of that. At some point, the council may consider vacating that connection there due to safety concerns. And that way people aren't going to complain later on that they weren't placed on notice of that.
Okay. I've got a motion for you, Mayor, if you're ready.
Okay.
I actually have a question, if I may.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
So as far as the Foothill Boulevard that's going along there, is it going to have a de-acceleration lane to turn in onto Falcon?
It's not designed, but we would anticipate in the first phase, whenever you have a connection point, that it would have a widening, it would have turn lanes, and it would have XL, decel lanes associated with that. So I would expect that the first phase and then the subsequent interim phases would certainly address those safety concerns. But to Councilmember McComber's point, I understand if this were to become a major spooey kind of intersection with a lot of traffic being filtered through the neighborhood, this certainly could be a problem. But I think as we design Foothill, we can address some of those issues with the interim phases.
Okay. Yeah, my only concern with that would be is if we do have a situation with cars on both sides and cars are trying to get through to turn, I guess that would be southbound onto Foothill, and there's cars trying to turn into this subdivision, that there might be cars that are backing up onto Foothill that causing issues.
And as we design Foothill, we'll certainly take that into consideration, and we'll work with the applicant as we can to make those mitigated.
And Mayor, before we take the motion, I just want to thank the applicant for bringing in a product that's similar to the neighborhoods surrounding it. I remember when I was on the planning commission, we saw a different plan for this area. I think this is much more consistent with the neighborhoods that are around it, and I like this a lot more.
Well, and I appreciate the response to listening to the council's feedback with creating a buffer to Foothill Boulevard. So thank you for that. Okay.
You ready for me?
I'm ready.
I move that we approve Canton Ridge preliminary plat, Fieldstone applicant west of Rocky Ridge Lane, business item 3, with all staff findings and conditions, adding a condition that a plat note be added for every lot in the development, stating that they are in close proximity to Foothill Boulevard, and adding a second condition, adding a plat note to roads along Fallow Drive, noting that Fallow Drive connects to a major transit corridor, and that future councils may choose to close the road off and make it a dead-end road.
Okay,
second.
I have a first from Councilman Porter, a second from Councilman Carn. Any further discussion on the motion?
Did you include, and I apologize if I missed it, but did you include working with staff to?
Oh, no, yeah. And adding direction to staff to work with the applicant to work on traffic calming measures on the west end of Fallow Drive.
I'm sorry, did I miss the condition about the park maintenance?
Yeah, that needs
Oh,
also
yeah.
to be added.
Yeah. No, I missed that one. And adding a condition that the HOA or developer will maintain the open space until all open space is completed and accepted by the city.
And I will second.
That work?
I will second Councilman Porter's meandering motion.
Okay, I have a meandering first and a strong second. Any further discussion?
I just want to note.
Terminator's in.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilman McComber.
I just want to make a note that I will be approving based on the fact that Mark Christensen pointed out the connection to the west, but that the fact that we have the option to close it in the future if we need to. Thanks.
So just a clarification too on that condition of approval. So the city city doesn't take on maintenance until we've actually accepted that as meeting city standards. The condition actually is that we will not agree to we're not maintaining any of these open space areas until they're fully connected and fully constructed. And so they actually connect to the, what do we call that? The Edge Home
Exercise park.
Exercise
This
park.
I amend my first to reflect the description by the lawyer.
Amended second.
Okay. This time we're really going to take a roll call. Porter.
Aye.
Karn.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
For your time.
Okay, we have the Drywood Meadow preliminary plat.
All right, so we have an 18 lot subdivision in the northeastern portion of the subdivision that is adjacent to Utah County.
There's an applicant that needs to be.
Oh,
made
sorry. Yes, this one is, let's see if he's on Keaton Morton.
Okay, there's a couple for Keaton, so I'm not sure. I'll do both. Okay, there you go.
So this is, it borders Utah County or Lehigh. 1100 is the road that is running north and south here. And it is a pretty basic cut and dry subdivision here. We have, they do come off of 1100 West from a Lehigh road, and they have been working with Lehigh to get that access. And then we do have two hammerheads here. We have open space parcel. They do meet all the requirements of the code for this. Let's see here. But you've got the landscaping. They do plan to add a swing set, also a playground, and then open fields for that. They do meet all the requirements for the open space credits, or not open space credits, sorry, the open space numbers that they need. They do meet all that. With that, Planning Commission did recommend approval of the Drywood Meadows preliminary plat.
Okay, Mayor Miller had to step away for just a minute. And so is there any questions from any of the council?
I don't have any questions on this one.
Did the applicant want to address anything first?
Yeah, if I can. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, I just want to thank the staff. They have been awesome to work with. As Gina knows, this has been, for a very small piece, there has been a lot of obstacles on this piece. But with staff, with Gordon's help, Dan and Gina, we've been able to, and with our engineers, we've been able to overcome all of those obstacles. And we've also worked heavily with Lehigh City, because 1100 West is a Lehigh road, which has kind of been the reason why it's been so difficult just to access utilities. Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for your guys' work and for your staff. They're awesome to work with. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions from the council?
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem, if I could, I appreciate the size of the lots and everything. This is a good use for the area. My question is, you are kind of a subdivision on an island, and I didn't see in here, Gordon, could you kind of go through where the utilities are, or maybe that's Jeremy, sorry, and you know, how are these connections being made?
Yeah, I can do that. Let's see. Well, let me annotate here.
Here's the somewhat of the utility plan.
Yeah, so they've obtained an easement there on the west side, and so they're going to connect utilities down through there, down into the existing Willow Glen subdivision. Yeah, so that's how they're getting to them.
And the developer makes all those connections. That's not, there's no liability to the city to do all that.
That's right. And the developer has already, I'll do another, the developer's already secured easement through this private property to get those connections from the existing Willow Glen up to his subdivision.
And that easement does address all those liability concerns.
Okay.
Easement for the city.
If Councilman Carn's done.
I'm done. Sorry. Go ahead, Councilman.
Oh, I was just going to say, I appreciate the applicant recognizing the staff. One thing that I noticed in this packet, maybe it's been there before, but I noticed it more prevalently. We always compliment when everything comes in complies. And I see, there was highlighted how many times, this one, not too many, but some of the others where it says complies. And so there was some back and forth. So I just highly appreciate staff's effort to help the developer get everything to complies, because that certainly makes it easier when we're trying to make motions. So we don't have to make motions like Councilman Porter made earlier, a mess of those type of things.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments or questions?
Just that I'll leave the messy motions to Councilman Wilden in the future. I'll try again to make a motion if people are willing.
Redeem yourself.
I move that we approve Drywood Meadow preliminary plat, Keith Morton applicant, 1900 South, 1100 West, with all staff findings and conditions.
Yeah, first from Councilman Porter, second from Councilman Cumber. Any other questions? All right, Councilman Weldon.
Aye.
Councilman McCumber.
Aye.
Councilman Carn.
Aye.
Councilman Porter.
Aye.
And I'm for Councilman Pedesca. All right, thank you. Let's see, moving on to the next item is one that I have to recuse myself from. So,
you want to skip this?
No, I'm back.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you are? Okay, perfect. All right, take it over.
All right. So
I was just enjoying watching you run it.
Myself. Yeah.
So with the,
all right, I'll go ahead and I'm going to turn my video off and my audio muted. So I'll come back after this item.
Okay.
Okay, we have Utah Lake Estates. This is a 12-lot subdivision. It is down by Catalina Bay, and it is this lot here. You have Utah Lake on the east, and then the Catalina Bay subdivisions here to the surround it. It is, where am I here? As you'll notice, the trail, so this is one subdivision that they are doing some of the improvements, the acreage here, which is the total open space requirement for this subdivision is 0.32 acres. And so they have taken 0.24 acres that will, 0.24 acres that they'll be improving along the lakefront of the Lakeshore Trail. And then the remaining, they'll be doing payment in lieu of open space to meet their requirements. So they did have, so the picture that you're seeing here, they did have a condition under the Planning Commission. There was a width here on the sewer easement that needed to be corrected. They did correct that. You are seeing the updated plat. It was included, the updated plat was included in your packet. With Planning Commission, I had gotten the updated plat that day, so I wasn't able to include it in their packet. So what you're seeing here is the one that includes those conditions, that they have met those there. There are additional concerns with this subdivision, in regards to the sewer capacity. I'll let Gordon address that. And you'll notice that the engineer staff report was not included in this. It was too late to include it. We did get an email back from the applicant that they would still like it reviewed and decided upon. That I don't know if you have, did you guys receive the engineer staff report? Was it included yesterday? Did you receive an email? Does anybody recall from the council?
I do not remember seeing that come in.
Okay.
Nor do I.
Okay, so how do we proceed if the council has not received that engineer staff report? The applicant still wants to go forward with that. Kevin, how do we proceed with that?
So
yes, as long as the applicant has basically waived that right under the Utah code,
which they have,
then you can proceed without the engineering staff report being provided 3 days in advance.
Okay, so
Now-
I did get an email from the applicant waiving that 3-day requirement.
Gina,
And
real quickly, 1 second. Gordon, could you just take a brief moment to explain your staff report before Gina continues?
thank you.
Okay, we sent, the council has seen a letter that we sent to stakeholders in the south end of the city that talks about
And since Gordon has frozen up, I'll finish that statement. The
capacity, sewer capacity. So the most important, what's that?
Gordon, you stopped for a long time. Your signal's bad.
Oh, okay. I'm going to turn off my video. All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Gordon.
Yes.
Okay. So a little over a week ago, we sent a letter to all of the stakeholders in the south end of the city. Well, all that we could identify. We've sent a few more since then, and the council has seen that letter, and it speaks to a capacity issue with the sewer in the south end of the city. And so, in the engineering staff report, there's probably the most important item in there is an item that speaks to this. And I'll just repeat it here quickly. The item says, it has been determined that the sewer system has reached capacity. In order to provide capacity for this development, projects S2.6, 4.2B, 4.3, and L10 from the capital facilities plan with an estimated total cost of $7.7 million must be installed. The attached letter was sent recently to the applicant and many other stakeholders in the south part of the city. So that's unfortunate news, but that's where we are with the capacity.
Okay, so with that, Planning Commission did recommend approval on this. Obviously, those conditions from that engineer staff report would need to be included in as a condition of approval for this preliminary plat, so that those items that Gordon had mentioned get covered in the staff from his staff report that was submitted. So other than that, is there any questions regarding this subdivision?
So to make sure I understand, if we approve it, would we include some condition that they need to comply with all conditions that will be listed in a future engineering report?
Correct. We actually have that report. It's completed. And so the condition would need to include the conditions of that staff report that we have now.
And that's
Stephen, the only delay was the fact that we didn't have it 3 days before. If that was the only thing they had to waive.
Correct.
And I
And
can
that
tell
staff
you,
report,
I can tell you the salient issue in that is what I just read to you.
so the staff report is the engineering report is very clear that before they can proceed, that sewer issue has to be addressed.
Yes, and so the way we would address it at this point is just include it in the bond calculation. Now, we all know that that's impractical for development of this size. And so we've contacted many of the other stakeholders, and we're trying to contact all of them to get them to work together to get rid of these bottlenecks.
Okay.
And just so you're aware, I don't know if you can see my screen, the staff report, is it showing up on your screens?
No, it's not.
Oh, let me reshare it here.
It's a landscaping plan that's up.
Okay. So this here, do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So this here is the staff report. Most of it
You'll
is,
want to increase the size on that, Gina.
Okay.
It's pretty small.
most of it is just the normal boilerplate conditions. The main one that Gordon was referring to was number 11 regarding the sewer capacity. So it is pretty specific and detailed out.
Maybe this is a dumb question, but Kevin, is estimated total, is that sufficient language? Because we have no design plans or anything. We all know that it can go potentially way up. We'd hope not, but are we sufficient just saying estimated total, or do we need to put language that it may increase based upon finalized plans?
I think that would be prudent, but I think that you're covered there as well because it does refer to the project itself. So it's not like if it does become more expensive, that really isn't relevant because those projects still have to be completed for the capacity. But yeah, I think that's a good suggestion.
You made me feel good about suggesting something that's not necessary, so thank you.
Well, the main purpose of that bond is just to provide great motivation for them to finish the project.
Okay. If there's no other comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve the Utah Lake Estates preliminary plat located at 86 McGregor Lane based upon the findings and conditions in the staff report.
I have a first from Councilman Carn.
Do we need to add the engineering report as well?
Isn't that listed?
No, you have to add it. It wasn't in the list, I don't think.
It wasn't in the staff report.
Okay, including a condition to meet all conditions of the engineering report.
Okay,
I'll
got an
second.
amended first. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Councilman Porter. Any further discussion on the motion? McComber,
Aye.
Wilden,
Aye.
Carn,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
and Pedesco is excused, so the motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. We just did the Crossing Village Plan 3. The Boyer Company's applicant.
David, I believe you're going to need to let Wade in as well as Dave Anderson. And I don't recognize the loan number up there. I don't know. It's a 674 number.
Yeah, I don't recognize the phone number either. If they can change it to their name, then.
Yeah, then maybe Scott Verheeren. He was the one I was in contact with that would be here.
Perhaps Wade can weigh in on that.
Scott's not going to be here. I'm taking the call. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right, let me get the right screen to share here. All right. We seeing the title page here?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor, Council, this is the approval for the Crossing Village Plan 3A. This will be not the final build out of the crossing, but will be a majority of that under Village Plan 3A. We obviously have 1 and 2. There's the potential for a 3B About 24 acres, Southwest Court Road, Market Street, as you can see on the map there in the blue outline, just north of Smith's. And this would be on behalf of Boyer Company and Suburban Land Reserve. The Planning Commission does recommend approval.
Okay, any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I just had a question. When do you expect to break ground on this, Wade?
We're hopeful this next spring. Well, that's why we're trying to get everything kind of buttoned up. We're starting to get a pretty good lineup of tenants, and so
anything you can announce that we don't know about already?
There's some on Facebook I didn't even know about that have been announced.
That's where you find all your news, is on Facebook.
Hey, just my only question, Wade, would be if you break ground in the spring, when do you anticipate we actually seeing some grand openings in that area?
When will Chick-fil-A be open? That's what he wants to know.
Yeah, delivery dates are still a little bit unknown. I mean, I think a lot of tenants want to open in spring of 2022. So a lot of it really depends on, can we get enough mass to get everybody going? I mean, obviously the coronavirus has slowed us down, but we're getting traction. People are coming to the table. We're in negotiations on almost every parcel or box. So we're pretty excited about it.
I don't know.
Great.
I don't see much slowing of traffic around Chick-fil-A's.
No question about that.
They've had a lot of business. Yeah.
Well, and that actual area is not even part of this motion tonight.
No, it's
correct?
not. It's not.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve business item 6, including all staff findings and conditions.
I'll second.
I have a first from Councilman Wilden, a second from Councilman Carn. Any further discussion? Okay. Podesta.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Carn.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Wade, for your time.
Thanks, everybody. It's been a joy to work with you guys. We hope to get this buttoned up just as fast as we can move forward. Thanks again.
Perfect. Thank
Thanks.
you. Transportation Master Plan Amendment, Ordinance 20-39.
Okay, Mayor and Council, over the last several years, we have updated the Transportation Master Plan in kind of a piecemeal fashion, and it became obvious that we needed to take a more holistic approach and really, overhaul the thing. And so that's what we've done. We hired a consultant, Avenue Consultants. We have Thomas McMurtry representing them tonight, and he'll go ahead and talk about what he's done, and then answer some questions.
Sure, great. Thanks for switching my name there. Appreciate it. Can I share my screen? Hopefully you guys can see that. Gentlemen, we presented, Mark Christensen and I presented to Planning Commission in October. And so these are the same PowerPoint slides that we had from that presentation. Although at that time, we probably took about 45 minutes. And I'd really like to maybe just streamline and just hit maybe a couple of the highlights for you guys. You've had a long evening, I feel like. And so, what Gordon was just saying is right. It's been a pleasure to work with him. We've put together kind of a completely revamped transportation plan, starting from scratch. If you guys haven't seen it, this just kind of gives you a rundown of all of its content. I think it's right around 70 pages. It's actually pretty easy to read if you haven't seen the document. We also put it together a website during, while we were working on this project. It's SaratogaSpringsMTP.com. And you can go there, and if you do visit that site, like on the homepage, you can download the full document. And so all of your residents have this document available to them to take a look at and review. Again, maybe just a couple of the big highlights. A lot of what the transportation plan includes is just a plan for the future roads in the community. This is the existing road network in Saratoga. We have put together a lot of the things that have been done recently, and like the road out to the temple and a lot of the different things around the community to just make sure that it's as up to date as possible. And then this map that you're seeing now is the level of service, which is how we measure how much traffic and congestion exists within the community. It's based on a letter A through F grade. And you can see there's some congestion, mainly on Redwood Road and kind of right near Plano Crossing and some of those areas. And I'm sure it's worse in the afternoon than kind of these daily representation. But overall, the community is pretty good. We also, in look at existing conditions, we also considered safety and traffic. And this is just a map of a bunch of the crashes in the community and the types of crashes. This was something that, we wanted to pay special attention to, especially if there are opportunities for us to improve safety and address some of these kind of key intersections. During the process, we reached out to the public online. We put together a community survey, and again, your staff was helpful in terms of getting that out there. I don't remember the exact number of participants. I know we had over 500 completed surveys, and for a community this size, that's really, really good. We didn't hold any public meetings, during Corona and the like. We didn't get anybody together, but we did get a lot of feedback and had some open-ended questions, and people were able to write detailed answers and tell us about the things that they are concerned with. Again, you can see some of the representative comments on this slide where, people are concerned with having, additional roads, lowering congestion, addressing safety, and even, bicycle and pedestrian activity in the area. All of those things are included in the full plan. Besides looking at the existing conditions in the community, we plan for growth, right? And so that's a lot of what we're doing. This is just kind of representation of the population that we looked at. Here's the land use map. And then we looked at that in a travel demand model. So we put the land use, in a model that models all the roads, and then the outcomes are what you see in here. So, 10 years from now, if we don't do anything, this is what the roads will look like in terms of their levels of congestion. And then here they are 20 and 30 years again, if no improvements are made. So obviously, the roads turn to red and orange and the whole community experiences gridlock, and that's no good. And so to plan so that we can kind of maintain the same quality of life, we look to putting together a future road network that makes a lot of sense. We have coordinated with MAG and the regional projects, which is shown on this map on the left. And then the map on the right is your future functional class in Saratoga Springs. And if any one map represents the entirety of the plan, it's probably this one. I mean, this is the snapshot of the future of roads, in your community. One of the things that Gordon made sure that we did was that we coordinated with both Lehigh and Eagle Mountain. And so while those areas are kind of faded out in the map, you do see kind of how their roads tie in to make sure that we are making good connections. In the case of the north end up here by the Wildflower area, Eagle Mountain is not connecting and coordinating, with the road network, but they recognize that. We had conversations with Chris Trusty and Steve Mumford there, and they are just now starting to undergo a process of updating their master transportation plan. So it was a good process. Finally, the big outcome is, okay, well, what do we need to do to get to that road network? And so, again, we've gone through a very detailed process of developing a complete project list of all of the community's needs for the future. And this is the road projects that are needed. You can see the map on the right, the list on the left. There are 52 of them. That is a lot. But it is completely comprehensive and addresses kind of all the needs. In fact, you guys, I know Mark and Gordon and others have been working really hard to kind of advance these projects as well. And so the first one, that Foothill Boulevard project, I think is already has funding and we're working on design. And so, I know that you guys are doing a good job kind of pushing these projects forward. There's also a list of needed intersection and signal projects. The funnel report also includes active transportation, transit, addresses all the modes. It integrates with the Trails Master Plan that you guys did recently. Anyway, if you build all of these things, this is what the future holds. So if you remember those red maps where we had all this congestion, where we didn't make improvements, if we do make these improvements, then you know, you guys get to maintain the same kind of quality of life and address all the needed you know, congestion in the area.
Can I ask you a quick question? What's the difference between these two maps? Because they're both build 2050. One of them has Pioneer Crossing, you know, in the
As a
orange
freeway,
level
yeah.
service.
And so you're absolutely right, Chris. It's a great question. The difference is, if I go back to this MAG map here, so MAG has this big blue line right here where it says that they're looking for a freeway connection. The regional transportation has identified that you need a freeway between Foothill and I-15. And they don't know where that freeway is going. They're doing a North Lake Shore study now to kind of determine that. And so if that freeway ends up being Pioneer Crossing, then you can address that orange kind of
That's
through
the right
area.
map. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
that's
the
just, I don't
freeway
know
is the right map. No
outcome is
freeway
gonna
is the
be.
left map.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Before we go to other questions, there's one comment or one thing I forgot to mention to Mayor and Council, and that is there are a few photographs in this draft that we think we can do a better job on, and so you can count on that. We'll switch some of those out.
Yeah, and that's a good comment, Gordon. I was thinking that what's on the website, I think, was our October draft, and I know that you identified a couple of photos, and we've already switched them out. So this is the actual document, and I can't remember like which photos we switched out, but I know that there was one we had at like the Redwood Road and 21st North. That's actually in Lehigh City, not in Saratoga. Maybe it's this one. Anyway, but we've addressed that in an updated document. So.
I had one other question. If you could go back to the signal and roundabout projects.
Yeah.
Now I was looking along Foothill between Quarry Ride and Pioneer Crossing and Pony Express, and we don't have any lighted intersections planned along Foothill, even though, you know, we're going to get Market Street connecting through and all that. And so I guess my question is, why are there no planned signalized intersections along Foothill in that section? Just because it's already kind of a traffic nightmare along that road. And so I don't know that we're going to last till 2050 without putting some signals along that road.
Yeah, that's a good comment, Gordon. I'm curious. I know that Foothill has a plan where, you know, initially it's the local street piece of it before it gets upgraded to the freeway. And I'm just curious, Gordon, if you want to maybe talk about, you know, what we want to do there in terms of, you know, signals on Foothill.
Can you zoom into the exact area where he's talking so I can see it a little bit better?
You know, yeah, this PowerPoint is just kind of on it, so it's a little kind of clunky in terms of, you know, looking at that specific area.
You just have to move your head closer to the screen. So.
Okay.
It's labeled 800 West on this map.
You know, the way Foothill exists, you know, initially, and maybe the way that's being built out might, you know, warrant and need signals for some of those, you know, the needed connections before it gets widened to, you know, a freeway in later phases. And we don't have signals planned there now.
Well, I'm talking specifically about the existing portion of Foothill, which is labeled 800 West on this map. But yeah, that section there.
Like 400 North and 800 West intersection is a perfect example.
Exactly.
And you know, thank you. That's a great comment. I think as we were looking at this, we did not necessarily talk about modeling future expansions to the city road. Rather, I think we may have gotten myopic in our analysis and just made the assumption that it's going to become a state road and the state can deal with those issues as it goes forward. So you bring up a great point. It's certainly something that we will go back and look at And then we can contemplate if we need to do an update to this, we can bring back that update. For sure, we'll be bringing back an update probably within about a year or two anyway. And we can-
Understood. I just want you to know that people in my neighborhood specifically, and as well as Sunrise Meadows and stuff, have seen this and are already commenting. The city is not planning on putting any lights on Foothill. What are they doing? So we
Yes,
might
I
want
think
to.
the point is well taken that we're not considering the interim condition, and that's really what the issue is the
Right.
interim, because ultimately there'll be a freeway there and so forth, and so it's the interim condition, and that point's well taken.
Well, and I mean, even with the freeway going through, there's still going to be cross connections. You know, either Talus or Buffalo or something is going to cross over. There's going to be intersections, just like Mountain View Corridor up in Salt Lake. There's going to be roads that cross. So I think we need to plan at least somewhat, because those are, I don't know whether up in Salt Lake, whether those are state intersections or whether those are city intersections. But we need to show that where there is going to be some sort of interim solution in this area, I think.
Now, Councilmember Porter, just so I mean, if you're uncomfortable with that and like to table this, I'm sure we could work through that and bring it back in the next meeting in January if that's a concern. So that's certainly one way that we can address that. If you're comfortable moving forward, we captured in the next update, that's fine as well. We do, obviously, we do want to move forward with
updating
our impact fees and other things associated with this. And so,
are those impact fee studies like ongoing, where they need this approved this month in order to reach finalization, or are we going to start them next year?
You kind of need the master plan to be able to work back from it. Again, but again, it's a couple week delay in this particular case. The other question with the TMP would be, do we want to add necessarily like the school crossing down near the new elementary school? And so if you did want to punt on those, on this, so that we could go back and address those items, we could certainly do that.
So what I was, if this weren't an issue, I was just going to suggest that we add a condition to add that school, that pedestrian separated crossing down there by the new school. But of course, like Mark says, if you want to address Foothill more thoroughly, then we'll just do them both later on the next meeting.
So the one competing challenge that I think we could see, Councilmember Porter, is where do you put that light? Do you put it on Talus, or do you put it over on what is that, Buffalo Drive, or which of those streets going into Sunrise do you look at? And so,
I'm not going to weigh in on that because I know where I'd put it, but I'll let the engineers, figure out where it makes the most sense.
Well,
I think engineering standpoint,
we've got two scenarios. We've got the interim condition where we're going to have 800 West there functioning for a while, and then we've got the ultimate condition where we've got roads crossing the freeway, and so short answer is I don't think we know. I think we need to put a little more thought into it.
Right. Is a month enough time? Is that something you guys can do? And I don't want to hold up everything just for this. If we are going to address it in a year or two, then that's fine. If you can get it done by January, then I would say let's wait and get it done now.
In this particular scenario, I think very quickly we could make that determination, and then
okay.
I don't know that this would necessarily stop the process on that.
Okay.
I agree.
All right. Then if, I don't know, do other people have questions? No?
No, Chris, I just encourage people, if anybody is going to go back and watch this meeting, I encourage people to go back and watch the Planning Commission meeting where this was discussed for probably an hour. There's a lot of really good information.
No, there was some great
that was
stuff
discussed
in
in
this.
that meeting. So
yeah. I moved that we continue this to the next meeting in January
I second that.
and
First
direct
from
staff to
Councilman-
work through the issues. So.
First from Councilman Porter, second from Councilman Carn. Any further discussion? Okay, Carn,
Aye.
McComber,
Aye.
Tedesca,
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion passes. We have the 2021 annual city council meeting schedule.
Mayor and council, this is pretty straightforward. If you'd like to meet next year, we'd recommend that you approve this.
I move that we approve the new schedule for 2021-22.
Perfect.
second.
I have a 20-part question.
Who second that?
Me, Councilman Pedesca.
Councilman Pedesca. Any further discussion? Wilden,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
McComber,
Aye.
Carn.
Aye, it's on my birthday, but okay.
And as long as we don't have a change on the first and third Tuesday, I'll be fine. It totally threw me this last month.
Let's make sure we talk about sewer on Karn's birthday, please.
Okay,
I'll finish up the vote by saying aye as well.
I thought I got you.
I can't remember.
Welcome to the party. Okay, code amendments, Title 19.
Mayor and council, I just wanted to take a minute. This is actually Marion's item, but I haven't had a chance to officially introduce all of you to Marion. I believe she covered a meeting, but she was briefly introduced. But Marion joined us in July and has been able to tackle some of these projects that have been on the back burner, including the one that's on the agenda tonight. But Marion joins us. She has about 10 years of experience doing natural resource law at a firm in Salt Lake. She also has 4 years of experience serving on the Sandy City Council. So she's been a great asset and she came in having a great grasp on municipal law and the issues that we face as cities. And without anything further, I'll turn the time over to Marion. Marion, are you joining us today? She said she was. She might have got disconnected.
I see her. She's just on mute.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and handle this. Basically what this is we had some conflicts between the bylaws, the city code, and Title 19. And I asked Marion to find those conflicts and take
Marion joined.
Oh, there she is. And she's done a great job of drafting some amendments to the bylaws and the city code in Title 19 that address those conflicts. Marion, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you for having me. Sorry, I lost connection for a minute, but I got it right back.
It always happens right when you need it the most.
It's
Well,
so
welcome.
true. Thank you. I will definitely try and be not long-winded. I know you guys have had a long night, but there's not a ton of changes. So if you have any questions, I'd love to answer anything.
Marion, you'll get along great if you keep it short and sweet with us. This is pretty straightforward stuff. We're just cleaning up the books. I appreciate your support and help.
Okay. Questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve business item 9 as stated on the agenda.
I'll second.
First from Wilden, a second from McComber. Any other discussion? Pedesca?
Aye.
Carn?
Aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
have. What was that?
Just thanks and have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
You can stay on.
I'm listening. It's exciting.
Spoken like a
define
true
excitement differently.
city council member from another city. That's only city council members find this exciting.
Not all city council members find this exciting.
Wilden would rather be reading a tax code book.
It doesn't take much to entertain attorneys. I hope you know that.
Okay, we got item 10, Foothill Boulevard design.
Okay, Mayor and Council, as you've been aware, the city was given authorization to get funding for the Foothill Boulevard corridor, the first few lanes from Pony Express down to Lariat. And the council approved $700,000 to advance the design of that. And we'll have to enter into a reimbursement agreement to get that money back through the money that was authorized through MAG. So consistent with the council's goal to get that road built, we put out a request for qualifications, and we received a number of good statements of qualifications. Some senior staff reviewed those and scored them and selected who we felt was the most qualified consultant. That was Avenue Consultants. And then we entered into negotiations with them about scope of work and budget. And that's what we have before you tonight for your approval to send them to work to start designing Foothill Boulevard from Pony Express down to Lariat.
Okay, there's no questions. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the Avenue Consultants design proposal for $690,467.25. It's item number 10.
10.
Correct.
I'll second.
We have a first from Councilman McComber, first from Councilman McComber, second from Councilman Porter. Any further discussion?
One question for Mark. The 690,000, is that going to be are we going to go for reimbursement on that, or is that part of our match for this?
Reimbursement.
Well, we can ask for reimbursement. Ultimately, we're going to have to fund a big chunk of this project, about $6 million worth of this project. So we'll probably just cover that as part of our costs, or we could get reimbursed and then pay for another part of the project. It just.
Okay, so it's all moving shells.
All coming out of the same bucket, yeah.
Yeah, the bucket's half full. So no matter how we fund it out of the bucket, we're gonna have to replenish the bucket. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Porter?
Aye.
Tedesca?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye. Sorry.
Karn?
Aye, and design it fast.
Yes, motion passes unanimously. That was my. Okay, item 11, Title 19, Section 19.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, this is just a real simple one, just another cleanup item. Since we had Marion's item on here, I thought I would just latch on this code amendment since we were already doing the public notice, but this just more clearly specifies the payment of rollback tax obligation prior to plat recordation. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve business item 11, code amendment title 19, section 19-1203, ordinance 2043 dated today.
I have a first from Councilman Karn.
I'll second.
Second from Councilman Podesta. Any further discussion? Porter?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Wilden?
Aye.
Podesta?
Aye.
Karn?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from November 10th.
So made.
I have a first from Councilman Porter,
Second.
second from Councilman Wilden. All in favor?
Did the changes get updated? There's just the one change of
right.
I had voted in something that was
with any changes submitted by email.
Yeah. Yep.
Those changes were made by Cindy.
Okay.
Perfect.
I'll second again, just to be safe, I guess.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We do have need for closed session tonight, so we'll adjourn to that and be back here.
Do we need a motion, Mayor?
I think we need to
Oh,
motion
yeah.
that.
I'll move approval
move-
for what's listed on the agenda.
Okay, I
Second.
got a first from Wilden, second from Karn. All in favor?
Aye.
I
So do I need to keep this meeting going? We can resume back.
Yes, we have to come back and adjourn this.
I can't get in, by the way.
Neither can
It's-
I.
It says expired.
Can we send it on a new one right now?
We'll try and let Mark know.
Yeah, I
Mark or
clicked
Olsen
on
found a
it.
new
It
one?
just says expired. It won't launch, nothing. Oh, it looks like they got it going.
Hey, David.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep,
No,
got you.
I can't hear you at all.
All right, well, have you guys jumping back on?
Hey, we got a quorum. We could just end it now.
You got to at least let Kayla get here so she can record the minutes.
Chris, you have no idea how long
I've
these
been
meetings
here.
can
I'm
go.
ready.
Yeah.
These meetings can go really long.
Feel like we're running
Well,
back and
I-
forth between meetings.
I know that historically some of the council meetings have gone quite late. I'm grateful we have not done that.
Jim, didn't we have one in the early years that went to like midnight and we had to cancel? We
We
had to
had to
stop
cancel it. Wasn't public notice.
because
Lisa
it wasn't public
kept
notice for the
yapping.
next day.
You just finished it in the parking lot.
No, we went to like 11:59 and we had to stop. So
So,
It
okay, I
happens
will
after midnight. So
entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn.
First from Councilman Carn,
second.
second from Councilman Porter. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
hey, thanks,
Did you
David.
did you just
Appreciate
nay?
all you've done.
Just
This is your last council
record that as
meeting,
an
right?
aye.
Yeah.
Yeah, David, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you so
David.
much, David.
Bye.
Good luck.
To take
Have
you out
fun
to
down
lunch at the
there.
patio when you're down there.
Okay.
It's
Sounds
literally
good.
the only place to eat.
Yeah.
You can maybe change that. You can win some businesses there. So, all right.